Chapter 594. If Xi Jinghong were to know that the method that he had racked his brains to come up with, which he thought was a foolproof, most reliable and effective method, had actually turned out to be the best whetstone to raise his opponent's strength, it was hard to imagine how depressed he would be. The only thing that Mei Xuan was worried about was, why did Jun Moxie lure that hateful Go Buhuan over? Mei Xuan's battle was in full swing, but Jun Moxie's battle had already ended. Go Buhuan's strength was only at the level of a supreme martial artist. With Jun Dashao's current strength, how could he win? On the other side, with a cold expression, Jun Moxie placed his sword on Go Buhuan's neck. Lengleng looked at this disheveled supreme martial artist and shouted, "Kneel down. You damn thing." Go Buhuan's eyes were filled with anger. He spat out a mouthful of saliva, "You're the damn thing. If you want to kill me, then kill me. You want me to kneel down? Dream on. You're cheap. Your bones are even more cheap. I want you to kneel down." Jun Moxie smiled cruelly and kicked twice. Go Buhuan screamed in pain. Both his knees were crushed by Jun Moxie's kicks. He knelt down softly. When his broken legs touched the ground, he felt a sharp pain in his heart. His eyes rolled back and he was about to faint. However, Jun Moxie released a stream of spiritual energy in time to keep his mind clear. He didn't let him faint no matter what. He could only bear the endless pain with a clear mind. The two of them chased each other all the way here. Under Jun Moxie's ever-changing methods, Go Buhuan was sometimes trapped in a pit, sometimes covered in snow, sometimes frozen, and sometimes burned. He was already in a lot of pain. Jun Moxie didn't have to spend much effort to capture this black-skinned guy alive. "Go Buhuan, do you like to eat human flesh?" This was where the knot in Jun Moxie's heart lay. "Motherfucker, you son of a b*tch, you actually want to eat my little Shui Yan. You really have guts. If I can't torture this bastard to death, how can I vent the anger in my heart?" Go Buhuan's words evoked Jun Moxie's endless killing intent. From then on, he made up his mind, I will not only kill this person. Moreover, he wanted to torture them to death. He wanted him to die a horrible death. "So what if I am? Jun Moxie, I want to tell you that I not only want to eat your lover's meat, but I also want to eat your brat's meat. Just you wait, I want to eat your entire Jun family's meat." Go Buhuan was in so much pain that his face was waxy yellow. Beads of sweat the size of soybeans dripped down, but he still held on and didn't let out a groan. His profound Xian energy had long been controlled by Jun Moxie, so he couldn't even self-destruct. His mouth full of teeth had been broken by Jun Moxie at the right time. It didn't cause him too much pain and didn't affect his speech. But if he wanted to bite his tongue to commit suicide, it was impossible. Only the roots of his teeth were left in his gums. How could he bite his tongue? "Your bones are really tough, worthy of the style of a great master. Even at this juncture, your mouth can still be so cheap. I have to write the word admire for you." Jun Moxie praised. He suddenly stretched out his hand and tore Go Buhuan's clothes, revealing a large piece of skin on his chest and back. He slowly said, "Go Buhuan, in my life, there are only two people that I hate to the bone, and I must kill them. The first one is Xiao Han from the Silver Blizzard City. You should be very happy now, because you are the second one. Your biggest mistake isn't eating human flesh. It's that you wanted to eat my wife's flesh. You were so proud of yourself in front of so many people, but you didn't repent after being subdued by me, and you even dared to tell me that you want to eat the entire Jun family. If I don't serve you well, how can I face you?" Jun Moxie smiled coldly. "Not to mention the fact that you're from the illusory blood sea, we're all enemies. Even if you're the son of a deity, I'll still make you die in extreme agony. Don't worry, I won't kill you, you still have a period of time to enjoy your life. Although my bones are tough, I don't like it when others act tough in front of me. If I can't make you beg me for mercy, then I will not be called Jun Moxie. I, Go Buhuan, have fallen into your trap today. I have nothing to say. It is easy for you to kill me, but if you want me to beg for mercy. June Moxie, you are wrong. If you have any skills, then show me. If I even frown, then I am not a real man. Go Buhuan endured the pain in his knees and said through gritted teeth. Good man. Let's see how long a good man like you can stay tough. June Moxie opened his hand, and shwa shwa sounds were heard as he made several bloody cuts on his chest and back. Go Buhuan laughed sinisterly. June Moxie, is this all you have? I don't mind telling you, these petty tricks of yours are far from enough. Let me tell you, I not only love to eat the flesh of beautiful women, but I also love to eat the flesh of young men. Even if it is the flesh of old men, I will not refuse it. June Mo Xia, I'll raise your June family like pigs in a pen if I manage to escape. I'll slaughter them every few days. I will wash them clean and make them go well with wine. Ha ha ha. I heard that June Zhantian has been fighting for his entire life. He may be a little old, but his flesh must be very firm. I will definitely like to eat. And, I heard that you are very lecherous. Your other mistress, Guan Qinghan, is quite good-looking. June Moxie, I will take good care of her. I will eat her bit by bit, and I will not let her die. I will slowly listen to her moans, ha ha ha. Go Buhuan stuck out his red tongue like a pervert. His eyes were filled with malice as he looked at June Moxie. His entire person was immersed in a kind of cruel pleasure. I heard that there is also a dugu xiaoyi, right? I will definitely have a good taste of such a little girl. Haha, there is a little girl in your room. What is her name again? I don't care, I will not let a single one of them go. I will eat the heart first, then the liver, and then, ah. He suddenly screamed. You won't have this opportunity. Instead, the lives of your family members will be cut off because of these words of yours. Today, I will do as I said, and turn you into a bird from head to toe. Look forward to it. June Moxie said coldly. His face was expressionless. He held a handful of white salt in his hand, and gently sprinkled it on Go Buhuan's wounds. Not a single bit was wasted. Go Buhuan screamed. His voice was loud and mournful. His entire body was twitching. June Moxie stood beside him with an indifferent and expressionless face. He sprinkled white salt on Go Buhuan's wounds and said in an indifferent manner, Is it comfortable? Go Buhuan. This is the first appetizer. Go Buhuan screamed. But he still smiled in pain and said, Comfortable, very comfortable. June Moxie, you have guts. This method is not bad. If I catch the June family one day, I will sprinkle salt on them like this before eating wine. You motherfucker, you bastard. You are a real man. Good dishes are coming one after another. June Moxie shook his head. He grabbed a handful of chili powder out of nowhere and sprinkled it evenly on Go Buhuan's wounds. He said gently, Go Buhuan, do you feel better now? Go Buhuan's body stiffened. He wanted to cry out to vent the pain in his body. But he was held back by the extreme pain. He couldn't make a sound at all. The veins on his body suddenly bulged out from his muscles. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His pupils suddenly dilated, and then shrank. Although he heard June Moxie's words, he didn't have the strength to reply. He could only open his mouth and maintain the same posture. The pain was so intense that his whole body was cramping. What a tough bone. Damn it, you can still bear it. The endurance of a supreme master is really not just for show. It's boring to have vegetables but no soup. Let me help you make a bowl of soup to moisten your throat. June Mo Xie smiled, and casually made a grabbing motion in the air. Then, a large lump of snow suddenly appeared in his hand. June Mo Xie secretly activated his Xian Qi, and it turned into a big bowl of snow in a split second. Then, he threw 2 handfuls of chili powder into the bowl. Then, he grabbed a large handful of snow, and melted it into the bowl. Then, he held the bowl with one hand. Not long after, the chili powder inside the bowl started to emit steam. But the surprising thing was that the bowl of snow didn't show any signs of melting. The chili powder started to boil. June Moxie suddenly pinched Go Buhuan's nose with one hand and poured the whole bowl of chili powder into Go Buhuan's mouth with the other. All of it went into Go Buhuan's stomach. Ah! Go Buhuan let out a strange cry. He could only feel a big ball of fire burning in his stomach. In an instant, his internal organs were on fire. He couldn't help but scream, "June Moxie! Kill me! Kill me, do you surrender now?" June Moxie stood in front of him with his hands in his sleeves. "Go Buhuan, I saw that you were rather strong-willed previously. As long as you say that you're convinced, kneel down and kowtow to me, I'll kill you immediately. I won't let you suffer anymore. You don't think I will F you." Go Buhuan's eyes were about to split open. He still didn't relent. "Very good. You're really tough. Looks like I have to give you a proper meal." June Moxie's body swayed and suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, there were 5 to 6 mountain rats in his hand. In his other hand, there were 7 to 8 snakes. They were wriggling lazily. It was obvious that they were hibernating. But June Moxie dug them out. June Moxie looked at Go Buhuan indifferently and smiled. "Go Buhuan, it's not too late to beg for mercy now. If not, this young master will treat you to a proper meal. I'm afraid it'll be too late for regrets." "Humph." Go Buhuan gritted his teeth and turned his head away. "Hero. I hope you can be a hero until the end. I have high hopes for you. Don't let me down." June Moxie threw the snakes and rats on the ground. Under the control of his mystical energy, the snakes and rats didn't dare to move. They stayed there obediently. Then, June Moxie tied up the legs of Go Buhuan's trousers. He casually pulled at his waist. 5 to 6 rats had already crawled into Go Buhuan's trousers. They were squeaking everywhere. Go Buhuan let out a blood-curdling scream. He could feel the rat crawling around his body, sticking close to his skin. His hair stood on end. His eyes finally revealed a look of fear. Suddenly, he let out a blood-curdling scream. His entire body started to tremble. It turned out that the rat had already discovered the flesh on his knee, and had actually climbed up and started to gnaw on it. A man-eater was actually eaten by rats today. Chapter 595. Go Buhuan was bitten by the rats. He was scared out of his wits by the pain. Although he was cruel and loved to eat human flesh, he could not accept the fact that he was eaten alive. As she listened to June Moxie's words, she felt a rat squirming between her waist and crotch. This was a very bad sign. Her complexion changed. But at this moment, she was in so much pain that she didn't even have the strength to beg for mercy. "We are both men. I will definitely not sit by and watch. I will immediately release the snakes to kill the rats and save your little snake. Go Buhuan, you should be grateful to them for saving you. These snakes were hibernating before this. You must be willing to provide a warm place for them, right? I heard that snakes love to burrow. Not only is your place warm, there are holes for them to burrow into. You can also eat and drink. It's a great place. It will be good if you are good." June Moxie pretended to pull open Go Buhuan's pants. He raised the snakes in front of Go Buhuan. The snakes hissed and flicked their red tongues. Their triangular heads swayed back and forth. Go Buhuan's entire body was trembling, and he finally broke down completely. Suddenly, with a puff sound, a foul stench filled the air, and his feces and urine flowed out from his front and back at the same time. Suddenly, he screamed and cried, and shook his head desperately, "No, no, 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 no." The way he looked at June Moxie was as if he was looking at a demon, an executioner who had killed since ancient times, and was already filled with fear. Fear from the bottom of his heart. "What? Speak clearly. Jun Moxie tilted his ear. Don't be like this. Don't. Don't. Please. Kill me. Go Buhuan clamped his legs together tightly. He kept screaming. He was extremely terrified. I am not satisfied with your current attitude. Jun Moxie frowned. I said earlier that I will only consider letting you off if you kneel down and kowtow to me. You haven't even kowtowed yet. You should learn to be sincere, Go Buhuan screamed in pain. His facial muscles were contorted. Suddenly, he stooped down crazily and kowtowed. His tears flowed freely. I beg you, I'll kowtow to you. You're a magnanimous person, please kill me. Kill me The voice was too low, I didn't hear it. You damn thing. Jun Moxie frowned, his face filled with dissatisfaction. He smiled faintly and said, you don't even have the energy to beg for mercy? I'm a bird, please. Please kill me. Go Buhuan continuously kowtowed and screamed in agony. He shouted with all his might. He could clearly feel that there were a few mice crawling towards his crotch area. They were already very close. This feeling of being buried alive in the mouths of mice was enough to drive Go Buhuan crazy. Not to mention the fact that he could become an incomplete man at any time. Remember. If there was an afterlife. Don't try to act tough in front of me, I hate it. Since you don't like this main course so much, let's end this feast early. Jun Moxie smiled warmly and stabbed the mice to death through his pants. Then, he stabbed the blood of yellow flame into Go Buhuan's chest. Go Buhuan's body trembled, and a relieved expression appeared on his face. He stared fixedly at Jun Moxie. There was no hatred or gratitude, just a simple stare, as if he wanted to remember this face for the rest of his life. He didn't know if he wanted to remember not to provoke him in the future, or if he wanted to take revenge in his next life. Jun Moxie pulled out his sword. The blade was as cool as water. Looking at the blade, Jun Moxie asked quietly, is it cruel? The godly sword did not speak, but light flowed around it. This is the pugilistic world. Jun Moxie looked at Go Buhuan's corpse and said calmly, actually, you are wrong. In this world, there is no such thing as a tough man. There are many people who are unafraid of death, but there are even more punishments that make people wish they were dead. When facing an enemy, when you can't beat them and can't run away, the best thing to do is to kill yourself first. This is my advice to you in your next life. Also, a man-eater. Dying like this is still too easy for you. Maybe I am too soft-hearted. I originally planned to cut off your 5 limbs, then help you heal your wounds and stop the bleeding, turning you into a complete bird. In the last moments of your life, your food will be your own flesh. Jun Moxie turned around and left. Quite a long time has passed. Shui Yan should have familiarized herself with that sword technique by now, right? He thought silently. On Mei Shuiyan's side, a few batches of people had already been replaced, and the situation was getting more and more dangerous. Almost everyone was gradually losing their composure. Seeing their comrades getting injured one by one, while the enemy was still unharmed, who wouldn't be anxious and worried in this kind of situation? Moreover, this continuous battle seemed to have no effect on Mei Shuiyan at all. She was just like that, unhurried, attacking from long distances and attacking from short distances. Her long sword was impenetrable. She had to face the tight encirclement of 12 people at all times, but she still attacked and defended, not showing any signs of fatigue. Moreover, once someone on her side showed a slight flaw, she would immediately receive the sharpest and most fatal attack. During this period of time, there were already close to 10 people who were injured. What was more frightening was that the power of her strange sword technique seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. Zi Jinghong frowned, feeling that something was wrong. He watched as Mei Shuiyan repeatedly used this sword technique, the gentleness of spring, the heat of summer, the bleakness of autumn, the coldness of winter, over and over again, but the basic pattern did not change at all. She is actually using us to practice her sword technique. Fuck. Zi Jinghong finally understood, and was so angry that his hair stood on end. His face turned from white to red, then to purple, and then to dark purple. It was indeed worthy of his surname, Zi. He thought that his plan was successful, but he never thought that his opponent would use him as a target. It seemed that if he wanted to kill Mei Shuyan, he would have to pay a considerable price. Zi Jinghong clenched his teeth, and suddenly shouted angrily, "Blood sees people, perish together." This sentence was like a thunderclap from the ninth heaven. Even Chu Chihuan, who was watching the battle from afar, could feel the chilling murderous intent in it. At this moment, the experts of the illusory blood sea who were still in the battle responded in unison, and their faces quickly turned into expressions of grief and indignation. At the same time, they did a somersault, and only 3 people were left. These 3 people roared, and their swords were sharp, and they attacked crazily without defending themselves at all. At the same time, their bodies seemed to be inflating, and they slowly expanded. "All the unfinished business is left to you. I will leave first. Brothers, see you in the next life." A roar came from afar, and the Supreme Master was the first to leap into the air. His long sword turned into a dazzling flash of lightning, which then turned into a round pillar of light. His whole body shone with a cold light, and purple lightning flashed, and he pounced towards Mei Shuyan, with an indomitable will. Everyone could clearly see that in this attack, the Supreme Master's body suddenly expanded as he moved in the air. Self-destruct. This was no longer a simple body and sword fusion, but a fusion of the Supreme Master's life, soul, and all of his strength. Using his life to kill himself first, and then kill the enemy. The most standard mutual destruction. The most terrifying mutual destruction. The first 3 people were in charge of restraining Mei Shuyan, sacrificing their lives to restrain her movements so that she could not move freely. Then, another person would control his sword and stab forward, becoming one with his sword, causing a self-explosion. The 4 of them would then use their own radiance of life to unleash a peerless attack. For Supreme Masters, mutual destruction. Mei Shuyan was very experienced. Naturally, she had also sensed this great potential danger. She did not dare to be negligent. With a loud whistle, her long sword rolled out like waves of snow. The sword chi instantly increased, and its momentum was unparalleled. However, the expert from the illusory blood sea beside her could not care less about the fact that his self-destruction preparations had not been completed. He suddenly pounced forward and fiercely slashed with his long sword. Boom! The long sword was indisputably broken. However, at this moment, he launched the most meticulous palm technique, completely ignoring his own life as he pounced towards the sword chi. Puff, puff, puff. Mei Shuyan's sword pierced through his body 33 times in an instant, from his chest to his back. However, he was still smiling miserably and sent his body over, due to inertia, invincible blood sea. Glory to the Holy Land. At the same time, the other 2 people also made the same choice, using their own lives to fill up any space that Mei Shuyan could escape to. Blood and flesh flew everywhere, but they shouted crazily, and pounced forward. The brilliant sword light that followed also followed, arriving in a flash. There was no space to dodge. Mei Shuyan was enraged, and suddenly slashed down with the long sword in her hand. The sword light trembled, and with a weng sound, a bright wall of light suddenly appeared in front of her, connecting heaven and earth, blinding the eyes. Tian Fa Heaven Punishing Sword. 2 equally brilliant sword lights suddenly collided. Boom! 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 3 violent explosions rang out, and the bodies of the 3 experts simultaneously surrounded Mei Shuyan, turning into minced meat. The power of the explosion was so strong that it actually lifted up a large piece of the ground in a 200 zhang radius, and it exploded in the air. With a muffled groan, Mei Shuyan's white robe exploded, and blood spurted out from her mouth. She staggered backwards, and her face was deathly pale. This suicidal move had actually caused Mei Shuyan to be seriously injured. Mei Xuan finally understood. It was obvious that the illusory blood sea had practiced this technique for a long time. Otherwise, they would not be able to cooperate so well. If they had nothing better to do, why would the illusory blood sea practice this suicidal technique? They must have been preparing to deal with her for a long time. So if Hermitage did not make a move, the illusory blood sea would have made a move. Mei Xuan let out a shrill cry, and her heart was filled with endless pain. At that time, the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands had not shed all pretenses of cordiality, but they were actually preparing to deal with her. These were all her comrades in the war for seizing the heavens. Where was their conscience? Where was the justice? Mei Xuan now truly believed Jun Moxie's words. No matter what, they were going to deal with the Tian Fa forest, and there would definitely be no accidents. In the eyes of the 3 holy lands, the Tian Fa forest was an even more terrifying opponent than the strange races. Mei Xuan's shrill cry pierced through the air, and the mountains and valleys responded at the same time. From near to far, the sound reverberated out, and then from far to near, like rolling thunder. The snow on the surrounding mountain peaks began to fall, and even large pieces of mountain rocks fell. Chapter 596. The killing intent in Mei Xuan's eyes had reached a crazy level. If that's the case, don't blame me for being unjust. Then let this venerable kill all of you until the heavens and earth turn upside down. I won't show any mercy. Do you really think that the king of Tian Fa doesn't know how to kill? Zi Jinghong's expression didn't change at all. It was as if she didn't see or hear what was happening around her. She slammed her palm down and shouted, "Blood and sea of perish. No turning back. Forward. Kill." Another 3 silhouettes dashed out from 3 different directions to intercept Mei Xuan. At the same time, another silhouette roared and soared into the sky from a distance. He swung his sword like a whirlwind and once again turned into a dazzling lightning bolt. If she really went through 2 explosions in a row, even if Mei Xuan was extremely powerful, she would still be seriously injured. At that time, the rest of the people would swarm in. Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weicheng's eyes shone with a cruel light of revenge. Although the price was a little high, but they could finally kill this master of Tian Fa. At this moment, something strange happened. An unimaginable and inexplicable change suddenly occurred. Suddenly, another unparalleled ray of light appeared in mid-air and flickered abruptly. It disappeared in a flash. It was like an extremely short flash of lightning, and then silence. Before anyone could even react to what was going on, the Supreme Master who was accumulating power in the sky suddenly roared and fell down like a weight. He fell right where he was standing, in the middle of the crowd. On his throat, there was a glaring hole of blood. Someone had actually killed him with a single slash when he was about to explode. The person who killed him had grasped the timing to an unimaginable degree. Because, the Supreme Master's power had been accumulating to the extreme and he was on the verge of exploding. But he suddenly fell down. When he landed, he completely lost control and exploded with a bang. As mentioned earlier, how could the self-detonation of a Supreme Being level expert be a small matter? Even with Mei Xuan's astonishing cultivation, she would still be injured, let alone these people who were far inferior to Mei Xuan. In addition to the unexpected incident, everyone was unprepared and almost unprepared. Who would have thought that the experts from their own clan would actually self-destruct in their own nest? And so, tragedy struck. It was a complete tragedy. This was like launching a missile. The missile had successfully lifted off, but the navigation system had malfunctioned, and the missile had fallen vertically. Boom. A series of blood-curdling screams resounded. How could the situation at this moment be described with the word chaotic? Xiao Weicheng and his subordinates from the Supreme Golden City were further away, so they were only hit by the shockwave. However, Zi Jinghong, who was in charge of escorting them, was the first to bear the brunt of the shockwave. She was sent flying by the shockwave on the spot. At the same time, 7 or 8 experts from the illusory ocean of blood were also sent flying into the air. Fortunately, they were able to circulate their Xian Qi to protect themselves in mid-air, so they did not suffer serious injuries. However, these people's internal organs had already been shaken. Blood flowed from the corner of their mouths. After all, this explosion was much lighter than the explosion of the 3 experts that Mei Shuyan had suffered at the same time. Even the 3 experts who were surrounding Mei Shuyan couldn't help but be dumbfounded at this moment. Fuck. What was going on? Even the blood ocean of blood perished together didn't cause such a change. Mei Shuyan's body spun, and she escaped from the encirclement that the 3 experts had created with their lives like lightning. Who is it? Who the fuck is it? Come out right now. Zi Jinghong crawled up, and the first thing she did was to curse without caring about her image. Fuck, which immoral thing is it? What kind of ability is it to hide behind someone's back and play dirty tricks like this? An ethereal and gloomy voice laughed in midair, and it seemed to say something softly. It feels so good to be able to trick so many Supreme Masters and those who are above the Supreme Master level. Then, an indistinct white figure streaked across the sky with a whoosh, shooting to the right and disappearing in a flash. It seemed to be hiding behind a big rock. At the same time, Jun Moxie's voice came into Mei Shuyan's ears. Come. Mei Shuyan understood and quickly used her peerless Qin Gong. Taking advantage of the chaos, her white shadow flashed and dashed towards the big rock on the right. Coincidentally, the avalanche that Mei Shuyan had just caused finally came crashing down from the surrounding mountains. Countless variables were added to the already chaotic situation. Go after her. Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weicheng were so angry that their lungs almost exploded. Both of them ran 10 feet in a flash, and they were the first to chase after Mei Shuyan. Their faces were full of expressions as if they wanted to eat someone alive. Although the explosion just now had caused a lot of casualties on their side, the casualties were not too serious. On the other hand, the fact that Venerable Mei was injured was an indisputable fact. If they did not take advantage of this opportunity to get rid of him, once he recovered, they would be completely finished. A trick like blood sea perish together could only be used when the opponent was not prepared. If the opponent was prepared, then it would only be a tactic that would damage their own strength. After all, every time it was used, they would lose at least one Supreme Master level expert. Even if the illusory blood sea was rich and powerful, they could not afford such a loss. Fuck. It can't be. A certain Supreme Master assassin behind the big rock felt all the hairs on his body stand up. His whole body felt cold. Fuck. Why are they all rushing towards me all of a sudden? There can't be such a coincidence, right? Fuck me. Aren't you guys fighting well? I was just watching in high spirits. How did a disaster suddenly befall me? Fuck, it would have been better if they had made some preparations. Seeing the large number of experts from the opponent's side charging over in a grandiose manner, the king of assassins, Chu Chihuan, felt his soul leave his body. There was no place to hide here. As long as they came up, they would be able to see me. How could I still be alive? Fuck. Although a few of them have died, the remaining ones are enough to kill 8 or 10 of me. Right at this moment, a sinister voice suddenly rang out. Just based on these small fries of yours, and you still want to catch me, Chu Chihuan? Do you have the ability to do so? Bah! This voice seemed to ring out right beside Chu Chihuan. Even Chu Chihuan himself heard it. He almost thought that it was him who had said it. He could not help but feel his soul leave his body, and his hair stood on end. Great Lord, you're playing me to death. Chu Chihuan groaned in his heart. He almost fainted. This voice was like the clearest guide, and all the experts of the 2 holy lands flew towards that direction like a large flock of crows with a boom. Fuck my mother. Chu Chihuan soared up without any hesitation. He did not even have the time to see clearly who was framing him. He turned into a blurry white shadow and ran away at full speed. After all, escaping was the most important thing at this moment. There was only one thought in Chu Chihuan's mind right now. This time, I'm really done for. I've become a scapegoat again. This time, it's even more awesome. I've become the scapegoat of the two holy lands. I can't live on like this anymore. Oh God, oh Earth, why is my life so bitter? I'm like a stray dog, and I'm like a fish that has escaped the net. The speed at which Chu Chihuan escaped was really amazing. His current speed was so fast that even June Moxie could not help but exclaim in his heart. So fast. Fuck your mother. Chu Chihuan. It's really you, you bastard. You son of a bitch who deserves to die by 1,000 cuts. You black-hearted thing that deserves to be struck by lightning. My supreme golden city, illusory ocean of blood, will fight you to the death. Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weiqing cursed at the same time. They were so sad and angry that they could not take it anymore. Why was it that the two families' flawless plans were ruined by this damned killer's hands? Could it be that he was born to go against our three holy lands? Looking again, Mei Xuan, whose Qing Gong was unparalleled in the world, had already disappeared without a trace. No one knew where she went. With Mei Xuan's speed, as long as she ran away, would they be able to catch up with her? Even if she was injured, they would not be able to catch up. Moreover, this was not the only way to go to the Dongfang family. Who knew which direction she had gone? Split up and chase. That would not be a pursuit, but a suicide mission. Zi Jinghong's eyes turned red. She was so angry. He roared like thunder, Chu Chi Han, this seat swears to the heavens and earth today, I will kill you. If I don't kill you, I swear not to be a human. Xiao Weiqing was so angry that his hair stood up. The two of them did not discuss at all. They brought their subordinates and swept past like a dark cloud. Each of them was so angry that their hearts were bleeding, and they chased after Chu Chihuan in anger. Chu Chihuan. I will definitely kill you. At this time, the avalanche came crashing down, and the basin was filled to the brim. Waves of snow flew up hundreds of feet, and rolled up thousands of piles of snow. For a moment, many heroes appeared, and the landscape was like a painting. After a long time, the shaking of the earth finally stopped. Behind a big rock less than 5 feet away from where Chu Chihuan was hiding, two people popped their heads out with lingering fear. They were June Moxie and Mei Xuan. That was so dangerous. June Moxie stuck out his tongue, and his face was full of lingering fear. His hand was on Mei Xuan's back, and it was only now that he took it off. A large amount of pure spiritual energy from heaven and earth had temporarily suppressed the healing of Mei Xuan's injuries. How did you know that person was Chu Chihuan? Mei Xuan looked at him in surprise, and she was very curious. When I came here just now, you were still persistently practicing your sword, so I came to take a look. This guy's sword is unique, the Autumn Dew Invincible Sword. It is very easy to recognize, and June Mo Xia laughed without the slightest hint of modesty. He then said proudly, in this world, the only one who has this kind of concealment skill is him, apart from me. There is no one else. I believe that even you can't do it. That's true. This person's hiding skills are indeed very shocking. He had hidden himself so close that Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weiqing did not even notice him. This kind of concealment skill, if it was spread out, would be enough to shock the world. I am also ashamed of myself. Mei Xuan agreed. So, if this person is not the supreme killer Chu Chihuan, who else could it be? June Moxie smiled. Chapter 597. June Moxie stared at him for a long time before he said, Don't worry, he won't die. You didn't see how fast he ran. How could a supreme assassin die so easily? Besides, this guy is not a good person. Don't worry about him. Let's leave this place first. I've only suppressed your injuries temporarily. Let's find a quiet place and I'll treat you thoroughly. Be careful next time. The supreme assassin's self-destruction is not something to be trifled with. The two of them continued their journey with ease. The next few days were really easy. They did not encounter even a single wave of attacks. This time, the three Holy Lands had sent out a strong and powerful lineup. There were a total of 90 top powerhouses in the world. Such a terrifying force was enough to shake the heavens and shake the earth in this world. But along the way, they suffered heavy casualties. The illusory ocean of blood had the fewest casualties, but they still lost 6 people. The Great Golden City had lost 17 people. Hermitage's 30 people were completely annihilated, not even a hair was left. Out of the 90 people, only 37 were left. And among these people, there were 3 or 4 who were crippled in the June family's residence. Another 7 or 8 people were wounded in the battle today. Their injuries varied from light to heavy. Even Xiao Weiqing had a few more scars on his body. With their current strength, if they still wanted to kill Mei Xuan, it would be tantamount to seeking death. Therefore, Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weiqing gave up this mission at the same time. Instead, they turned to another target, the Supreme Assassin, Chu Qihuan. The Great Golden City sent out a kill order, kill Chu Qihuan. The illusory ocean of blood did not want to be left behind. They also sent out a killer weapon, the Blood Sea kill order. They swore not to rest until Chu Qihuan is dead. When the elusive world of immortals heard that the people they sent out were all killed, and that Chu Qihuan had played a key role in it, they were also furious. Without hesitation, they sent out another elusive world of immortals kill order. The 3 Holy Lands shared a common enemy and a common target, Chu Qihuan. In a short period of time, the Supreme Assassin Chu Qihuan's name could be said to have shaken the entire Xian continent. In a short period of time, his name was awe-inspiring and awe-inspiring. In just a few days, the name of the supreme killer Chu Qihuan had spread all over the continent. Everyone was exclaiming, "This supreme assassin is too awesome. Too awesome." With the strength of a single person, he challenged 3 Holy Lands. Many Supreme Being experts and experts above the Supreme Being level had died in his hands. This was something that had never happened in the past 10,000 years. What a ferocious man. He was too fucking valiant. As a result, Chu Qihuan's name continued to soar, rising to an unprecedented height. All the assassins in history, no matter how glorious their achievements were, in front of Chu Qihuan, they all paled in comparison. Chu Qihuan's name had surpassed all the ancestors of the world of assassins. From this moment onwards, Chu Qihuan had directly reached the heavens, achieving his greatest wish, to become the #1 assassin in history. To surpass the ancients and dazzle the contemporaries. In the past 10,000 years, who dared to challenge the 3 Holy Lands so directly? Not to mention offending all 3 of them, even offending only one of them would be a rare occurrence. And now, our great student Chu Qihuan had simultaneously stirred up the 3 most terrifying hornets' nests. Not to mention his achievements. Just this kind of courage, this kind of boldness, is absolutely unprecedented in history, and will never be matched in the future. To be Chu Qihuan, to shake the world with incomparable might. To look down on the past and present, who could compare? To outshine the world, the supreme assassin. In a short period of time, the people of the world had such a poem, fighting to praise the great achievements of the Supreme Chu. As long as the Xian cultivators of the pugilistic world gathered together, they would discuss, "Hey, do you have any news today? Is it about the Supreme Assassin? No, but this guy is really fierce, to actually be able to defeat the 3 Holy Lands at the same time. This kind of courage, this brother admires it to death." If there's no news, it means he's not dead yet. To think that the 3 Holy Lands can't do anything to him? What do you know? Supreme Chu is the #1 assassin in history. Although the 3 Holy Lands are very powerful, but, can they compare to their seniors? You have to know that Chu Qihuan has surpassed his master. No water can compare to the great killer Chu. That's true, at Chu Qihuan's level, there is indeed nothing to fear. Awesome, this brother has never heard of such a fierce person in this world. This is too fucking satisfying. To challenge the 3 Holy Lands alone, just thinking about it makes this brother tremble with excitement. isn't that right? Chu Chihuan is really gutsy, really too gutsy, too manly. Yeah, do you guys know why Chu Chihuan wants to kill the people from the 3 Holy Lands? Why? Tell us quickly. Everyone was anxious. You guys are really ignorant. I'm the only one who knows about this secret. Sigh, I've traveled such a long distance, I'm thirsty and hungry. I'm really tired. Nacho sighed and sighed. Waiter. Hurry up and serve the good wine and dishes, if you're a moment late, I'll break your neck. Pick the best, the most expensive. With a loud bang, a few people shouted at the same time to treat. Seeing that you guys are so sincere. I'll tell you guys, Nacho narrowed his eyes mysteriously and stretched out 2 fingers. Actually, there are 2 reasons for this matter. The first reason is that Chu Chihuan has a childhood sweetheart, she's too beautiful, but somehow, the people from the illusory blood sea of the 3 Holy Lands found out about it, so they came to take a look, and with one look, they were mesmerized, so that's how it is, so it's a love dispute. Everyone suddenly understood. So they snatched her back, but after they snatched her back, there was only one person, how were they going to split it? So they fought. This fight was not a big deal. The Holy Land Lord came out, and after stopping the fight, he inadvertently saw that woman. I have to say, she's really too beautiful, ah. I have to say, a beauty is really a source of calamity. Nacho shook his head, fascinated, and then? Nacho scratched his head anxiously, and then he took her for himself, and indulged in sensual pleasures every night. Nacho laughed obscenely, his voice extremely low. Everyone gathered around the table and listened attentively, their black heads squeezed together like a small plate of cabbage that was surrounded by flies. Everyone's hearts were filled with gossip, and their eyes were filled with curiosity, but, somehow, this matter was found out by the other 2 Holy Lands, so the other 2 Holy Lands lords were curious, and they came together to pay a visit. I have to say, that woman is really too beautiful. I have to say, a beauty is really a source of calamity. Then, guess what happened? A fight? No, they didn't fight, but I don't know what exactly happened. In any case, the 3 Holy Lands lords were very happy, and everything was very peaceful. Oh. There was a deep and meaningful voice of realization. Then, Chu Chihuan found out about this matter. Everyone, what if this happened to you? What would you do? Is there a need to ask? Take out your swords and go. Damn it, a man can do anything but be a tortoise. If you're a man, you have to go. Clapping his hands, he said excitedly, isn't that so? So, things have come to this point today. Chu Chihuan was actually forced to do it, but there's no doubt that the great supreme Chu Chihuan is a real man, yes, a real man. Oh right, what's the other reason? The other reason is already obvious. At the level of Chu Chihuan, he has already reached an unprecedented level. It's lonely at the top. Even if I explain this to you guys, you won't understand. Let's drink, everyone smacked their lips, a look of satisfaction on their faces. So there's more to it than meets the eye. Someone raised a question. Chu Chihuan's childhood sweetheart, no matter how you look at it, she should be more than 100 years old, right? An old lady with wrinkled skin and white hair, can still be so charming. TSK, you're really ignorant and inexperienced. Disdainfully, don't you know what it means to be a middle-aged woman, but still attractive? Do you know? What does it mean to retain one's youth? Do you know? What does it mean to live forever? Do you know? What does it mean to use yang to nourish yin? Do you understand? What does it mean? Do you understand now? Nodding his head like a chicken pecking on rice, he said, thank you for your guidance. Asking a gentleman's words is better than reading for 10 years. My horizons have been broadened today. The stone in my heart has been swept away. This was a version, but it was definitely not the only version. There were at least a few hundred different versions circulating in the continent, and each of them was well-founded, and well-founded. They were all vivid and lifelike. Chu Chihuan had truly become the most famous person in history. In the entire world, there was no one who did not know of him, no one who did not know of him. That poem had even become a masterpiece for all eternity. Of course, all of these, Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao temporarily did not know. This source of everything, the creator of all the blame for Chu Chihuan, was currently leisurely traveling in the sea of forests and snowy plains with a beauty, completely unaware that the reputation of the great supreme Chu in the outside world had already reached such an exaggerated level. If he knew, I believe that Jun Dashao would definitely feel very comforted in my heart. Perhaps even jealous. How did the title of the world's #1 assassin disappear out of thin air? After all, this guy's thinking could not be understood with common sense, 200 miles away from the Dongfang family. This place could be said to be the territory of the Dongfang family. After exiting a dense forest, Jun Moxie stood at the top of a mountain, looking at the vast mountains in front of him. He could not help but sigh. It was really not easy for my old man to find his wife in such a hidden place. How many days has it been since I left? Other than birds and beasts, I actually did not see a single human footprint. What do you mean by that? Mei Shuiyan, who was originally smiling sweetly and following him, suddenly stopped in her tracks, her face darkened, her eyes looking at him with a very unfriendly gaze. Fuck. Only then did Jun Moxie remember that he had unknowingly offended a beauty again. This was a air. Xian beast, fuck, I must install a door on my mouth. I actually mean, other than the two of us, there is actually no one else. Jun Moxie wiped away his sweat, and quickly used the great skill of changing the topic. Shui Yan, I really admire you too much, so these few days, I wrote a poem for you without rest. Do you want to hear it? This is my confession of my true feelings. Let me hear it. Mei Shuiyan instantly became interested. She knew that although this guy was known for being ignorant, he could often come up with a few absolutely beautiful poems that could be passed down through the ages. Now that she saw that he had specially written a poem for her, of course her curiosity was aroused. Chapter 598. The name of this poem is If. Jun Mo Xia cleared his throat, and a mysterious smile flashed across the corner of his mouth. He steadied his emotions, and sank his qi into his dantian. Then, he used a cadence of emotions to recite the poem, If I were the peasant, then you would be the noon. If I were the bow, then you would be the eagle. If I were the Qingming, then you would be the He Tuesday. If I were the immortal sword, then you would be the legend of chivalry. If, there are so many ifs. My heart is in it. His voice was clear and deep, and it traveled through the dense forest. Thus, the entire valley echoed, peasant, noon, peasant, noon. After he finished reciting, Jun Moxie looked at Mei Shuiyan sincerely, and said affectionately, Shui Yan, this is my feelings. It expresses my most sincere feelings for you, and also my desire for you. Love is higher than the mountain, and love is deeper than the sea. You, just give in to me. Mei Shuiyan frowned, and softly recited the poem. The more she recited, the more confused she became. Finally, she asked humbly, what does this poem mean? You only need to know that this poem is my wish for you. Only the sun in the sky can express my feelings. Jun Moxie said solemnly. A trace of inexplicable emotion flashed across Mei Shuiyan's face, but she still pondered in her heart. The feelings in this poem were quite deep, but the literary standard was too ordinary. She was like this, if there was something she didn't understand, she would keep thinking about it. But this time, she didn't understand at all, and softly murmured. After a long time, when she was about to ask Jun Moxie again, a voice suddenly sounded from afar, who's making a racket here? Following this voice, a person flew over like a meteor from afar and landed in front of the two. The moment he saw Jun Mo Xia, he was immediately overjoyed. Mo Xia, you brat, you're finally here. I've been counting the days and waiting for you these past few days. I've been waiting for you to show up. the person who came was Dongfang Wendao, Jun Moxie's third uncle. Dongfang Wendao saw Mei Shuiyan, and couldn't help but stare at her, and said, "This is." He praised in his heart, "My nephew is really capable, he actually found another one, and she's so beautiful, your niece-in-law, my wife." Jun Moxie hurriedly introduced. Dongfang Wendao panicked, and touched his body left and right. After a long time, Dongfang Wendao looked embarrassed. "Why didn't you say so earlier? I'm your uncle, I didn't bring any greeting gifts." Mei Shuiyan really suffered a lot of embarrassment when she followed Jun Moxie. Along the way, as long as they knew each other, Jun Moxie would introduce them, "This is my wife, my wife, my wife, my wife, my wife." But when he introduced them like this, Mei Shuiyan couldn't say anything, because these people were all worthy of Jun Moxie's respect and intimacy. But they were all her juniors. It was really uncomfortable. As time passed, Mei Shuiyan didn't care about this. She was already used to it. She had also trained to be thick-skinned. If she didn't have thick skin with this guy, she would really die of embarrassment. "What greeting gifts do I need?" Jun Moxie declined enthusiastically, "When you go back, you can just give me a double." Shui Yan definitely won't mind, "You really don't regard yourself as an outsider. Don't you know that your third uncle doesn't have much money?" Dongfang Wendao glanced at his nephew resentfully. "Let's go, your grandma is waiting for you, and her eyes are already going to become blurry." Jun Moxie cursed in his heart. "What? Blurry eyes? Even old people will get blurry eyes when they are old, okay? How can you say that she's waiting for me? What are you talking about?" When Dongfang Wendao said the seventh sentence, "Almost there, just a turn and we'll be there," they finally saw the gates of the Dongfang family. This caused Jun Moxie to have some doubts about his uncle's concept of distance. From 300 li away, he had already said, "Almost there, just a turn and we'll be there." But up till now, he had already made over 100 turns. The Dongfang family that appeared in front of Jun Moxie surprised Jun Moxie. There was a valley in front of him. In the valley, the surroundings were actually fields. Only in the middle, there was a big house with red walls and green tiles. But it didn't have any luxury of an aristocratic family. Instead, it looked like a peaceful and ordinary village. However, this simple and unadorned village had a unified wall. Then, the inside was divided into houses. In the middle was a wide continent that was paved with fine stones. Over the years, the stone road had already turned dark brown, and even lost the slightest bit of edge. 9 people were waiting in front of the door. There was a red sandalwood chair in the middle, and a thin old lady was sitting on it. She had snow-white hair, and even her eyebrows were snow-white. Although she was old, her spirit was exceptionally good, and she looked kind. Only when her eyes flashed, one could still see the sharpness that she used to dominate the martial world. Her face was full of smiles, and when she saw Jun Moxie coming, she couldn't help but tear up. "This is your grandmother," Dongfang Wendao said in a low voice. That year, she used a technique to maintain her youth. She looked like she was in her 30s or 40s even though she was in her 70s or 80s. But when your mother was brought back, she looked so miserable, so her hair turned white overnight, and she became old and haggard day by day, until she looked like this now. Sigh. Dongfang Wendao's words were heavy, and Jun Moxie's heart ached when he heard them. He remembered his grandfather Jun Zhantian's evaluation of Dongfang the old lady before he left. "Your grandmother is not a simple person. She is like an old demon. She is in her 70s or 80s, but she looks like she is in her 30s. She looks like your mother, more like a sister than a mother and daughter. She is peerless in her generation, graceful and elegant, and has the demeanor of a great family." Jun Wui also warned him solemnly, "Moxie, you must be more respectful when you meet your grandmother. Don't feel uncomfortable just because she looks young." Madame Dongfang can be said to be the wisest woman your third uncle has ever known, but now that he remembered his grandfather and third uncle's warning, Jun Moxie only felt sad, heartfelt sad. Jun Zhantian and Jun Wui's impression was still the one from 10 years ago. Madame Dongfang, his own grandmother, had actually become like this in a short period of time after she brought her daughter home, wrinkled skin, white hair, and doddering old age. What kind of mental torture did she have to go through to become like this? Although his daughter was married and had children, in the heart of the old lady, she was still the little girl with pigtails. Seeing that her daughter was so sad, living a life worse than death, and couldn't get up, the motherly heart of Dongfang the old lady had also collapsed. Why would a mother care about her image when her daughter was like this? Under the heavy worry, her hair turned white overnight. In the past 10 years, there were thousands of trivial things to take care of, and there was a strong enemy oppressing the Suo family. How could she not grow old? Beside her, second uncle Dongfang Wenjian and eldest uncle Dongfang Wenqing were standing on both sides. A few young boys and girls behind them were looking at them curiously. There were also 3 dignified middle-aged beautiful women looking at Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyan quietly. The old woman didn't speak, and neither did they. Is it when Xian's son? Mo Xie. Jun Moxie. Old Madame Dongfang stood up shakily and looked at the young face in front of her. In a trance, she seemed to see the shadow of her daughter when she was young. In a trance, she seemed to see her daughter walking over delicately. Suddenly, she thought of her daughter who was still unconscious and her heart was tightly shut. Suddenly, her eyes turned red. She forced herself to take 2 steps forward, her white hair fluttering in the wind. Her voice trembled a little. Come closer, come quickly, let Grandma have a good look. My grandson, why did you come so late? An indescribable bitterness rose in Jun Moxie's heart. He forced a smile and moved forward slowly. He knelt down on one knee and raised his head to look at the strong old woman who had sacrificed so much for her children. His heart was filled with respect, affection, and an indescribable bitterness. That year, Jun Wuhui died in an accident. Dongfang Wen Xian heard the bad news and fell ill. The old lady of Dongfang came out of her seclusion and slaughtered the world. The assassins of the Dongfang family were everywhere, and the whole continent was shaken. They washed the Xian Empire with blood. That year, Jun Mo Yu and Jun Mo Cho were mysteriously murdered. The Dongfang family took revenge. Blood flowed for thousands of miles. Even the Tianxiang Imperial Palace was filled with human heads. All of these were the masterpieces of the old lady. For her children, she did not hesitate to use the weak power of the Dongfang family to fight against the whole world. What kind of boldness was that? Even if she had to slaughter the whole world, she had to take revenge. What kind of deep hatred was this? All of this was for her daughter, for that true love. Similarly, it was precisely because of this that the Dongfang family suffered from the combined forces of the 3 supreme martial artists. At the end of their rope, this peerless beauty of a generation had unwillingly sworn a vow. Carrying with her endless regrets and a heart full of pain, she faded out of the martial world. Her revenge was not avenged, her blood was not paid. She had no choice but to return. From then on, there was no way for her to return. Facing her daughter's endless pain day and night, facing the helplessness in her heart, facing the pain that was equivalent to a lifetime of pain, how could this mother who loved her daughter endure it? The sword peak collapsed and the Xian beasts came out of Tian Fa. How could the old man feel good about spending the past 10 years in such a remote place where no one would ever tread? How could there be a chance to fulfill such harsh conditions? If there was no day, wouldn't the Dongfang family's descendants die of old age in the mountains? For the sake of a daughter, she had to implicate the whole family. Even if she had no regrets, it would be difficult for her to face the other family members. What a huge pressure this was. It was constantly pressing on the old lady's heart. She was in a dilemma. If she didn't agree to such conditions, the Dongfang family would have been destroyed on the spot. There would have been no chance of survival. She had no choice but to agree, but in exchange, she could only struggle at death's door. Jun Mo Xie suddenly felt that he understood this grandmother of his very well. The pressure on this seemingly frail old woman was too great, too heavy. There is a very important matter that I need the help of my brothers and sisters. Rebirth Sweeps the Wind and Clouds, book number 1764269. The author, Sword Dance Sweeps the Wind and Clouds, is a very good brother of Feng Ling. Tonight is the first time this book is going to be on the list. It is very crucial. Please help him, everyone, and help him dance the wind and clouds. Chapter 599. So much like when Exan when she was young, so much like. The old lady of Dongfang stroked June Moxie's face with her wrinkled hands. Her eyes gradually became blurry, and 2 drops of tears finally fell down. She couldn't see her grandson's face anymore, but she still couldn't let go of him. Suddenly, she pulled June Moxie into her arms. Her body was trembling, and her tears were dripping onto her grandson's collar and neck. She murmured, "My dear grandson. You haven't seen your mother for so many years. It must have been hard on you." June Moxie wanted to say something to comfort the old lady in front of him, but somehow, his throat was choked, and he couldn't speak at all. This kind of strong affection blew into June Moxie's heart like the spring breeze and drizzle, making him feel that he was not alone in this world. There were so many people who cared about him, loved him, and protected him: family, kinship. The old lady's eyes were filled with tears, and her white hair was desolate. At this moment, she was just an old lady who had seen her grandson who had wandered away from home. She didn't have the slightest bit of spirit that she used to have when she was waving her sword and slaughtering the world. "My dear grandson. Other children at your age are still growing up under the protection of their parents, but my poor grandson lost his father at the age of 7, and his mother left when he was 8. Although he is still alive, it's like both his parents have passed away. Whenever I think about it, my heart feels like it's being cut by a knife, mother. It's a great thing that Emocia is back now. You should relax your heart, and focus on your health." Dongfang Wenqing came forward to persuade. Mind your own business. My grandson is here. So, I naturally want to take a good look at him. He grew up with that old bastard Jun Zhantian. How can he not suffer? That old bastard is hot-tempered, and always scolds him. How can he teach my son well? My son must have suffered a lot over the years. If it wasn't for our Dongfang family's bloodline, I'm afraid that he would have been driven astray by that stubborn old bastard. It could be seen that the old lady held a deep grudge against Grandpa Jun. She kept calling him old thing and old thing. In the end, she finally felt a little relieved. Fortunately, he has the blood of my Dongfang family. Otherwise, this child would have fallen into depravity long ago. A few years ago, when she heard about Emocia's debauchee deeds, the old lady was so angry that she almost rushed out of the mountain to find Jun Zhantian to settle the score. In the old man's heart, the child was naturally good. Even if the child became bad, it was because Jun Zhantian did not fulfill his responsibility to teach the child. That old man was a blockhead. How could he know how to teach the child? June Moxie didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard this. After a long time, the old lady finally calmed herself down. She took a handkerchief from a noblewoman behind her and wiped her eyes. Then, she looked at Mei Shuiyan and asked June Moxie with a smile on her old face, "Emocia, this girl is my granddaughter-in-law? She looks so pretty. Come, girl, turn around and let grandma have a look." June Moxie nodded hurriedly like a chicken pecking at rice. "Grandma has a discerning eye. This is my granddaughter-in-law. Are you satisfied with her? If not, I'll beat her up tonight." June Moxie's words made Mei Shuiyan roll her eyes. Mei Shuiyan snorted in her heart. "We're in front of others. I'll give you some face and not argue with you. Beat me up? You? It's hard to say who's going to beat who up. Just you wait, I won't take care of you tonight. Do you think my tofu is that delicious?" "Ha, you little brat, how can you say that? A daughter-in-law needs to be doted on. How can you say that you want to beat her up?" Besides, can you really bear to beat such a fairy-like person? The old lady smiled and looked Mei Shuyan up and down carefully. She nodded repeatedly and narrowed her eyes. Satisfied, she said, "Mos, you have a good eye. This girl is pretty, and she has big breasts and a big butt. She'll definitely give birth to a son. You can't just lay your hands on her." Mei Shuyan's face instantly turned red. She almost stamped her feet in embarrassment. "I'm the #1 beast king of Tianfa. Even if you're Jun Moxie's grandma, why, actually, say that to me." Jun Moxie beamed with delight. "Grandma is right. She'll definitely give birth to a son. I have confidence in this. There's definitely no problem." At the same time, he was very curious. Is the Dongfang family really so out of touch? They actually don't know that Shui Yan is the venerable Mei. If you have a child, you have to send him to me. Grandma will take care of him and educate him well. Your grandfather is careless, how would he know how to take care of a child? I don't want to lead a child astray. Let's talk about you. If it wasn't for your mother's bloodline, it would be hard to tell you. If that old man gets angry, Grandma will scold him. Thinking of Jun Moxie's reputation as a profligate son, the old lady obviously still held a grudge. What? Send him here. Not to mention Grandpa, even I won't be able to get through this. Jun Moxie's face twitched. He looked at the deep mountains and old forests. Fuck, this place is even more remote than the Tianfa forest. The mountains are not clear, and the water is not beautiful. This is your first aunt, this is your second aunt. This is your third aunt. Quickly come and greet them. The old lady was full of smiles. She took out a small white jade box from her bosom. It was actually made from a whole piece of warm jade. Just this small box alone was worth a lot. Opening the small box, there was a small phoenix standing proudly inside. The phoenix's body was actually colorful, and its eyeballs and feathers were even more lifelike. It was as if it had come to life and could spread its wings and fly at any time. This radiant rainbow phoenix is made from a piece of multicolored jade. It naturally forms 7 colors, and they are all 7 pure colors, without any impurities. Coincidentally, it also formed the image of a phoenix. That year, a famous craftsman, Lu Qiaoshou, spent 3 years to take it out completely. It is a rare treasure. When it first appeared, it caused a huge uproar in the world. It became the dream of all the women in the world. That year, it even caused countless bloodshed and disputes. Later on, it fell into my hands, and I could not bear to take it out. Now that I have seen it today, I can give it to my good granddaughter-in-law as a greeting gift. Hee hee. The old lady smiled. She personally inserted the radiant rainbow phoenix into Mei Shuyan's cloud-like hair. She looked at it from left to right, and said with satisfaction, "Only a fairy like my granddaughter-in-law can bring out the best in this radiant rainbow phoenix." After putting on the jade hairpin, Mei Shuyan's hair, which was covered in dark clouds, changed colors. It made her already beautiful face look even more beautiful and alluring than before. Mei Shuyan thanked her with a red face. The moment she saw this radiant rainbow phoenix, she fell in love with it at first sight. Even though Mei Shuyan was a Tianfa beast king, she was still a woman after all. She could not avoid the customs. Next, it was the turn of the 3 aunts to present their greeting gifts. In an instant, Mei Shuyan carried a few boxes in her hands. She was a little shy and embarrassed, but she was also very happy. This. Should I call him cousin, Grandma? A mischievous little boy popped out. He was about 10 years old, and looked very cute. He had a pair of black eyes that rolled around. Little naughty, hurry up and greet your cousin. The old mistress smiled amiably and pinched little Naughty's tender little face. She said to Jun Moxie, "This is your second uncle's youngest baby, little Naughty." Cousin. The little boy took a step forward and puffed out his chest. "My name is Dongfang Little Huai, not Dongfang Little Naughty." Actually, I don't really like the name Little Huai, but, the day my mother gave birth to me, I heard that she dreamt of a small locust tree. Little Huai is already not nice to hear, but everyone still calls me Little Naughty. Actually, I'm not bad at all, really, Dong Fang Little Naughty. Little Naughty cousin, how are you? Jun Moxie rubbed his nose. Looking at this little boy's mischievous appearance, how could he not know what he was planning? As expected, cousin. Look at how many gifts you've received today. I'm younger than you. This is the first time we've met, are you going to give me a gift too? Dong Fang smiled mischievously and tilted his head to ask for a bribe. That's easy. Didn't you just say that you're not satisfied with this name? Cousin, how about you give me a nice name? It's absolutely awe-inspiring, so that people will be shocked when they hear it, and they will never forget it. It's the kind of name that has the bearing of an unparalleled master. Jun Moxie rolled his eyes. Ah. What name? I'm thinking of changing it. But my parents won't let me. It would be best if cousin could give me an awe-inspiring name. The little boy suddenly forgot about asking for a gift and became excited. Well, Dong Fang Little Huai. It's really not awe-inspiring, and the locust tree is the ghost of the tree, so it's a little inauspicious. How about this? Jun Moxie smiled mischievously and said, how about you change your name to Booby? Dong Fang Booby. Dong Fang family will never be defeated. How about it? Isn't it bold enough? Dong Fang Booby. That's great. This name is too awesome. In an instant, the little boy's face lit up with excitement. He turned over and somersaulted twice, and announced loudly, from now on, my name is Dong Fang Booby. That's right. But you have to work hard, you have to live up to the awe-inspiring name of Booby. Also, I've thought of a slogan for you. Jun Moxie said mysteriously. What slogan? Dong Fang Little Huai's eyes were filled with enthusiasm. In the future, when you roam the martial world, and someone asks for your name, you have to say this. Jun Moxie puffed out his chest, raised his head, and put one foot in front and one foot behind. He put on the air of a peerless master who looked down on the world, and with a steady and dignified voice, he shouted leisurely, Sunrise, Dong Fang, only I. Booby, sunrise, Dong Fang, only I am Booby. Dong Fang Little Huai. No, Dong Fang Booby cried out loudly, and looked at Jun Moxie with eyes full of admiration, Sunrise, Dong Fang, only I am Booby. It's really too awe-inspiring, too classy. Wahaha. Wow. Cousin. You're really too talented. I announce that from now on, you're my, Dong Fang Little. No. You're my, Dong Fang Booby's, idol. After settling the matter of Dong Fang Booby, Jun Moxie smiled with a sense of accomplishment. He looked at the people around him, and they all had a look of approval on their faces. They were very satisfied that Jun Moxie had obtained the name, Booby Dongfang. The Dongfang family must have this kind of domineering aura. Sunrise, Dongfang, only I am Booby. To the Dongfang family, the fact that their grandson had received this name was an unexpected gift. Chapter 600. Uncle. That's my name. My cousin gave it to me. Why can't I use it? The little boy was so anxious that his face turned red. He jumped 30 feet high and protested strongly with his voice that had yet to change. You're just a kid. It's good enough that you have such a cool name. This slogan should be left to the Dongfang family. Jump again, and I'll cancel your name. Only the first in the family competition can be called Dongfang Invincible. Dongfang Wenqing threatened him directly. The little boy was stunned. All right, what's the fuss? Hurry up and go in. Third brother's house, have you cleaned up the guest room I asked you to? I want the best. Come, let's go to the main hall and drink some tea to moisten our throats. My grandson has traveled thousands of miles and must have had a hard time. Now that we're here, we're going home. Let's rest first. The old lady of Dongfang held Mei Shuiyan's hand affectionately and held Jun Moxie's arm with her left hand. She was so happy that she walked quickly. Just as he reached the entrance of the hall, Jun Moxie jumped in fright. There was a large group of women standing in front of the entrance. Surprisingly, there were more than 100 of them waiting. Come, Moxie, I'll introduce you. The old lady was obviously unhappy. She pointed at the largest group and said, "These are all your uncles, family members. This is your second aunt, this is your third aunt, this is your 17th aunt, and this is your 59th aunt. That's not a lot, right?" Jun Moxie was shocked. He stood there in a daze. His mouth was wide open and he couldn't close it. Awesome. Too awesome. When he first heard about it, it was just a number. After all, seeing is believing. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, he was shocked. His uncle was too powerful. 59th. The most amazing thing was that the 59th aunt seemed to be only 1 or 2 years older than him. She definitely didn't use some kind of technique to maintain her youthful looks. Her young face was definitely not something that could be faked. After greeting them one by one, Jun Moxie felt that his legs were aching, his waist was sore, and even his neck was aching. Although he didn't need to kowtow, just nodding his head was a strenuous job. He turned around in astonishment and looked at Dongfang Wenqing with admiration. "First uncle, Moxie is truly convinced by you today. You're really made of iron." Dongfang Wenqing's originally dignified face immediately turned red. Dongfang Wenjian and Dongfang Wendao, who were standing behind him, let out a ha sound and started to laugh in Schadenfreude. "Second brother, what are you laughing at?" The old lady was furious. "Come, Moxie, come here. These are your second uncle's family members. This is your second aunt, this is your third aunt. This is your third aunt. This is your third aunt." Jun Moxie's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. First uncle had 59 wives, and second uncle had 36. Oh God, oh Earth, oh my God. I thought I already have a lot of female friends. I didn't expect that compared to my 2 uncles, it's like comparing a fluorescent light to the bright moon. Comparing a mustard seed to a mountain, I can only look up to the mountain. It seems that I need to continue working hard. Even if the quantity is not enough, the quality must not be relaxed. These are your third uncle's family. Less. The old lady's face looked better, only 3. On the other hand, the most hard-working one has given me 3 grandsons and 2 granddaughters. Unlike the eldest and the second, each of them has a bunch of men, but they can't even give birth to a single egg. What a disappointment, useless things. Jun Moxie finally understood where the old lady's resentment came from. It turned out that first uncle and second uncle did not have any children. No wonder not only the old lady was angry, even their wives and concubines looked resentful. They looked at Dongfang and little Huai with envy. When they looked at the 2 again, they had already lowered their heads in shame. After exchanging greetings for a long time, the gifts the 2 received had piled up into a small hill. Finally, everyone left. Even Dongfang and little Huai were forcibly dragged away. Only the old lady and the 3 uncles were left in the room. Jun Moxie heaved a sigh of relief. He hurriedly asked, "Old lady, my mother, her current situation." At the mention of this matter, the expressions of the old lady, Dongfang Wenqing, and little Huai became gloomy. They did not speak for a long time. After a long time, the old lady finally sat down slowly. Her expression was very painful. She slowly said, "I have been trying to change the topic. It's because I don't want to talk to you about this matter for the time being. Although I know that you will ask about it sooner or later, to this old lady. I will delay it as long as I can." Jun Moxie's heart sank. Could it be that mother has already? If you come now, you can still see your mother for the last time. The old lady turned her head sadly. A drop of tears fell to the ground. She forced herself to calm down and said, "Actually, it doesn't make much difference whether she sees or not. Anyway, she can't hear or see anymore. She can't even feel anything. She already doesn't care about anything. She doesn't even care about her son, and she doesn't even want me anymore. This unfilial daughter." The old lady finally choked with sobs. The three Dongfang Wenqing and little Huai lowered their heads sadly. "All these years, we have tried everything. We invited countless famous doctors and searched for countless elixirs, just to wake her up. That year, the world's #1 divine doctor, Xin Huichun, came to see her and said, 'This is a heart disease. She has already shut the door to her heart. As long as she doesn't want to wake up, she can sleep like this until the end of time.'" The old lady suddenly turned her head. Her eyes were full of tears, and her expression was agitated. She shouted in a stern voice, but she didn't think about what I, her mother, would do if she were to lie lifelessly like this. "My heart is rolling on a mountain of knives every day. Every night, it's being fried in a pot of oil. Her 2 sons have died with hatred. Her only son is still young, and she doesn't care about him. She doesn't fulfill her filial duties in front of her in-laws. Her birth mother, her own flesh and blood, is worried every moment. Could it be? Could it be that the sky has collapsed without Jun Wuhui in this world? Why can't she be a little stronger? Why can't she work harder?" The old lady was already speechless by the end of her speech. But she still continued in a hoarse voice, "In order to take revenge, our Dongfang family fought against the whole world. We slaughtered our way across the continent. We fought wave after wave. Tens of thousands of lives were lost under our swords. As the saying goes, to kill 1,000 enemies, we have to sacrifice 800 of our own. And our children died one by one. Many of our good sons never came back. Some of their corpses were left in the wilderness. Some of their corpses didn't even remain. Even 2 of my late husband's brothers perished together with the 6 Shenxians of the Shao family. Wasn't this a form of kinship? Weren't these the feelings of kinship? Isn't this endless amount of blood, in her heart, can't it be compared to Jun Wuhui?" The old lady's voice was fierce. But her tears were falling along with her sonorous words. Her tears were falling like rain. But this stubborn girl. She actually chose such a path of no return. She made countless people's efforts and sacrifices become meaningless. The old lady was sobbing uncontrollably. "Anne. Day and night, she has been torturing these old bones of mine. Wen Xin. You can question your own feelings, but why don't you ask your own filial piety? You are so cruel. Wen Xin. Perhaps, in mother's heart, father was her entire sky. He was her everything. When father was gone, the sky would collapse, and everything would disappear." Jun Mo's voice was hoarse as he said, "Love is so deep, it's meant to be together in life and death, inseparable in yin and yang. Grandma, you are also a woman. You should understand this kind of feeling. It's because I understand. I'm the one who feels terrible." The old lady was furious. Her tears flowed freely. What's the use of her lying there like this? I wanted to stab her with my sword countless times. I wanted to release her from this endless sea of suffering. I wanted to fulfill her wish to be with me in the underworld. But she is my daughter, my biological daughter. She was raised by me from a young age. I held her in my hands and feared that she would fall. I held her in my mouth and feared that she would melt. She is my heart, my liver. How could I do it? How could I do it? Just thinking about it made his heart ache so much that it could overturn the seas and rivers. But if I don't do it, when will she be able to endure? When will it end? Everyone was silent. Dongfang Wenqing and the other two people lowered their heads. Their eyes were red and glistening with tears. Fortunately, the Linglong treasure tree that has been supporting her life has exhausted all its vitality. It's starting to wither. She should go. Now that you're here, you can finally see her one last time, and send her on her last journey. It's like, there's a descendant to send her on her last journey. The old mistress fell to the ground weakly. Her eyes were lifeless, and her white hair was disheveled. Suddenly, it was as if all the energy in her body had disappeared. It was as if her life force had been released along with that furious roar. Mother. You know my sister's character very well. She's always so passionate and focused. You know it better than anyone else. Why do you have to do this? Dongfang Wendao wiped his tears and said, to love only one person in life and death. Mother, my sister's character is very similar to yours. When father died early, didn't you also want to leave us 4 siblings behind? At that time, little sister was only 3 years old. We stayed with you day and night. We were afraid that you would suddenly leave us behind. But even so, you still tried to commit suicide a few times. We were all scared out of our wits. The old lady let out a long sigh. She seemed to have recalled something. A gentle smile slowly appeared on her aged face. She muttered, this is different. Your father was a heroic man. He was unrivaled in his martial prowess. He was the #1 man in the world. That Jun Wu Hui, how could he be compared to your father? Chapter 601. Sigh. Do the women of our Dongfang family have to bear such a tragic fate? The old lady of Dongfang looked up to the sky and sighed. Her expression was mournful. Don't give birth to a daughter in the royal family, and don't marry a hero. It's too hard to marry a hero. It's too tiring. It's too sad. The 3 of you must remember, the daughters of the Dongfang family must be the wives of ordinary people, and not the wives of a hero. I'd rather them marry into an ordinary family, where the man plows and the woman weaves, and the husband sings and the wife follows, supporting each other until their hair turns white, and living an ordinary life. I don't want them to experience such a passionate love. Because if such a thing happens, it's often the loss of thousands of lives, and the destruction of the entire family. At the very least, the whole family will be in a miserable state, and will never be able to get rid of it for the rest of their lives. That being said, which woman in the world doesn't want to marry an indomitable hero? Who doesn't want their man to have unparalleled achievements, and be admired by thousands of people? An ordinary person and a hero like Jun Wu Hui, if placed in front of a woman, who would she choose? He believed that the majority of good women would rather follow a hero and suffer for the rest of their lives than choose to grow old with an ordinary man. How could a beauty whose beauty could cause the downfall of a city be willing to marry a villager? She would rather not marry, and live alone for the rest of her life, than go against her heart. Just like Mei Xuan, if she hadn't met Jun Moxie, she would have quietly passed away in the mountains after many years, and would have turned into a wisp of lonely wind, and would have never randomly found a man to marry. Since ancient times, beauties often had unlucky fates, and this was precisely the reason. The hall became silent, and after an unknown amount of time, the old lady finally waved her hand, and said in a tone of despair, the 3 of you, take Mo Xia to see his mother. I won't go. Then, she silently sat on the chair, lowered her head, and didn't move. Only a puddle of water could be seen on the ground, and it was getting bigger and bigger. That was the tears of a loving mother. Everyone quietly retreated, but the old woman remained motionless, like a wooden statue. Jun Moxie and Mei Xuan could still hear the sound of the old lady's tears falling on the floor even after they had walked far away. Every single drop came from his heart. The joys and sorrows of their children will always be in a mother's heart. A mother's heart will always be throbbing with the misfortune of her children, and the throbbing pain. Even if they have grown up, even if they have a family, even if they have children, it is still the same. How many of us have unknowingly made our own mothers sad? May all the mothers in the world no longer be sad. They would not be sad. In front of him was a quiet courtyard. The walls surrounding this small courtyard were much taller and thicker than the other places. Outside, the ground was covered in snow, and it was a vast expanse of greenery. In fact, there wasn't even a patch of snow on the ground. It was clean. There were also 7 or 8 plum blossoms blooming in the cold. As soon as they walked in, they felt a sense of warmth, you see. For the past 10 years, no matter how heavy the snow was, as long as it entered this courtyard, it would melt. Dongfang Wenqing's voice was not boasting, but rather, solemn. That year, little sister was bedridden and in a deep slumber. Mother used up all of the family's wealth and didn't hesitate to collect small pieces of warm jade from all over the continent. She buried them in this courtyard. I don't know how many she bought, and how many she buried. In any case, as long as she had it, she buried it. In just a short half a year, the Dongfang family's pockets were completely empty. But mother still refused to give up, because she knew that little sister liked the kind of life where hundreds of flowers bloomed and green flowers bloomed. She said little sister would recover faster in such an environment. Jun Moxie was taken aback. He finally understood why the once illustrious Dongfang family was now living in such dire straits. His heart couldn't help but surge with huge waves. There seemed to be a ball of fire burning in his chest, and his nose seemed to be blocked by something. His heart was so sour that he wanted to cry. Warm jade, those were all priceless treasures. As long as one wore a piece the size of a finger, one could wear it in the cold winter, and it wouldn't affect one's health at all. However, the things that the Dongfang family had bought with such a high price were all buried in this courtyard. It was all for the sake of letting his unconscious daughter sleep more comfortably, although they knew that she might not be able to feel it. In the middle of the courtyard, there was a quiet small building. The ground was spotless, and the surroundings were quiet. Walking into this place was like walking into a painting, or walking into a dream. 2 maids dressed in white appeared silently and saluted them. Dongfang Wenqing waved her hand and said, "No need to be so polite. This is the young master and young mistress of the young lady's family. They are here to visit the young lady. You don't need to serve here anymore. You can leave now." The 2 maids' bodies shook at the same time. They raised their heads and looked at Jun Moxie. Their eyes were filled with surprise. Tears of excitement suddenly rolled down their cheeks. They sobbed and said, the young lady's son has finally come to see her. I hope she will be happy." They looked at Jun Moxie with teary eyes for a while, and then they left reluctantly. "These 2 people were your mother's personal maids. After your mother returned, the 2 of them have been serving her for a whole 10 years. Dongfang Wenqing said in a soft voice. Jun Moxie's expression changed. He looked at the backs of the 2 maids gratefully and said softly, "Thank you." The 2 maids' bodies trembled, but they didn't look back. They lowered their heads and quickly walked out. 2 lines of tears fell on the ground as they passed by. Dongfang Wenjian and Dongfang Wendao had been extremely cautious ever since they had stepped into the courtyard. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Even the 3rd master Dongfang, who had always been rough and loud, had been extremely cautious in his movements. It was as if he was afraid of alerting someone. Jun Mo Xia looked around and saw that the interior of the small building was elegantly decorated. Although there weren't many things, there wasn't the slightest bit of emptiness or disorder. Every place was neatly tidied up, and every arrangement was ingenious. A living dead person who had been asleep for 10 years lived here, but there was not the slightest smell in the air. Instead, there was a faint floral fragrance in the air. Jun Moxie sighed in his heart. Together with Mei Xuan, he followed Dongfang Wenqing up the stairs quietly. Dongfang Wenjian and Dongfang Wendao were excited. They didn't dare to go up, afraid that they would disturb their little sister. So, they stayed downstairs, when they walked to the front of the bedroom, they felt a warm air blowing on their faces. Dongfang Wenqing sighed and said, "The biggest and most complete piece of warm jade was made into little sister's bed." June Moxie was shocked. Dongfang Wenqing opened the bedroom door gently and said in a low voice, "Little sister is inside this house, sigh," she said and let out a long sigh. June Moxie and Mei Xuan looked up and couldn't help but feel shocked. The two of them knew that this was June Moxie's mother's bedroom. But when they looked around, they could only see that there was a bed on the south side facing the sun. But they couldn't tell that this was a bedroom. A woman was lying quietly on the bed. Her body was lightly covered with a layer of quilt. From here, they couldn't see her face clearly, but she was sleeping peacefully. On her chest, there was a small green tree that looked like it was carved out of jade. It was glowing slowly. It was nourishing Dongfang Wenxian's body, but the branches and leaves had already withered and curled. On the surrounding walls, there were pictures hanging neatly. June Moxie only glanced at them, and suddenly his heart was shocked. Then, he burst into tears. Jun Wu Hui. They were all pictures of his father, Jun Wu Hui. Jun Wu Hui in his military uniform, Jun Wu Hui who dominated the battlefield, Jun Wu Hui riding on a horse, Jun Wu Hui in casual clothes, Jun Wu Hui in white with a sword, Jun Wu Hui smiling, Jun Wu Hui frowning, Jun Wu Hui angry, Jun Wu Hui deep in love. Jun Wu Hui in his youth, Jun Wu Hui in his middle age, every picture was exquisite and vivid. Every picture was vivid and lifelike. Every picture seemed to be made with all his heart and soul. It was as if there were countless Jun Wu Hui standing, sitting, or walking around in the room, accompanying their loved ones. From these pictures, one could completely see, feel, and even experience the legendary life of Jun Wu Hui, and even Jun Wu Hui's character. There was absolutely nothing left out. The eyes in each painting were fixated on only one place, that small bed, and the person on that small bed. It was as if they could not get enough of looking at it for all eternity. It was as if these gazes had pierced through the netherworld, pierced through the yellow springs, and were fixated on this place, unwavering for all eternity. When little sister came back, she could still move. She supported her body and did not sleep or rest for 3 days and 3 nights. She drew these pictures one by one, no one could persuade her. During that time, she was very crazy. But her expression was very calm. Every time she finished a picture, she would look at it for a while, cry, laugh, and then choose a place to hang it up, and then continue painting. At that time, everyone thought that she had painted enough and would stop painting. Who knew that after little sister finished her last picture, it was as if she had no strength left. Everyone stayed by her side, watching her, but her eyes did not look at anyone. She only stared blankly at the void, and then she just stared blankly at it. It was as if Jun Wu Hui was just standing there, until Dongfang Wenqing's voice was choked with sobs. Until that night, she suddenly spoke. Everyone was overjoyed. But after she recited those few lines of poetry, she slowly closed her eyes and never opened them again. It has been 10 years now. A whole 10 years. Jun Moxie's eyes were blurred with tears. He saw a piece of calligraphy hanging on top of Dongfang Wenqing's head. This was the only place in the whole room that did not have a portrait hanging. No regrets in this life, no regrets in this life. Since the ruler has no regrets, your concubine also has no regrets. Where is Wenqing? No regrets in the end, no regrets in heaven and earth, no regrets in life or death. The person on the bed, Jun Wu Hui's wife, Jun Moxie's mother, Dongfang Wenqing, was sleeping peacefully. There was still a hint of tranquility and gentleness at the corner of her mouth, and there seemed to be a blissful smile. In her dreams, Jun Wu Hui, the person she loved deeply, was always accompanying her, watching her. He was still talking to her face to face, and was still looking at her. In her dreams, they would grow old together, with me and with you. Where is Wenqing? No regrets in the end. No regrets, Wenqing, Wenqing, no regrets. Although it was gone forever in reality, in her dreams, it could go on until the end of time, until the end of time, until the end of the world. Therefore, although she often slept without waking up, she was very happy, and very blissful. Therefore, she did not want to wake up, even if she died. Because once she woke up, it would be gone. It was enough to lose him once. Regaining him after losing him was already a great fortune. If she lost him again, how could she bear it? Therefore, she did not want to wake up no matter what. The door of her heart was tightly shut. Jun Moxie suddenly felt that he had never been so weak in his life. He swayed his body twice, and suddenly sat down on the ground weakly. His tears flowed out like a fountain. He held his head with both hands, and only felt that it was a mess. His mind and heart were filled with this earth-shattering love. What is love? At this moment, it was vividly displayed on Dongfang Wenxin, who was lying quietly on the bed. Love is not changing until death. Love is not changing until death. Love is not giving up on yin and yang. Love is to have no complaints or regrets. Love is love. In this world, there is nothing else that can replace one's love. In place of his lover. For all eternity, for all eternity. Perhaps, in the dream, this love was still continuing for all eternity, where the flowers were beautiful and the moon was round, where the deep feelings were deeply attached, where the earth grew old, the sea dried up, and the rocks crumbled. Women, the most sincere feelings in a lifetime are only given to one person. This was especially true for these peerless beauties who could topple nations. These peerless beauties, they were frighteningly persistent. But this kind of feeling, is true love, is forever. Perhaps to other relatives, this was indeed quite cruel and selfish, but to Dongfang Wenxin, she could no longer care about it. It was not that she didn't care about her mother, her son, or her family. It was because her heart was empty. It was already dead. It could no longer hold anything else. She could no longer think. With tears in her eyes, Dongfang Wenxin left quietly. Mei Shuiyan's tears streamed down her face. She leaned on Jun Moxie's shoulder and cried silently. In the face of such love, in the face of such true feelings, who wouldn't be moved? Especially since the two of them were originally affectionate people who loved each other deeply. Mei Shuiyan suddenly had a clear feeling. If the person in the portrait was Jun Moxie, then the person lying on the bed right now would be her, Mei Shuiyan. This kind of ecstatic feeling made her sad from the bottom of her heart, and she could no longer be as elegant as before. Jun Wuhui, Dongfang Wenxin, a peerless hero, and a peerless beauty. The presence of Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyan did not affect the atmosphere in the room at all. Dongfang Wenxin was still smiling calmly, peacefully lying on the bed peacefully. Jun Wuhui in the portrait was still looking at his beloved wife affectionately, unwavering, determined, and persistent. Different portraits, different gazes. It was as if he was worried about Dongfang Wenxin lying on the bed, as if he was smiling indulgently at his wife's mischievousness, as if he was angry at Wenxin's disobedience, as if he was smiling gently at his wife's sweet sleeping posture. All the gazes were filled with tenderness and love. Although Jun Wuhui's body was no longer there, his feelings were still so intense and passionate, filling this space and this heaven and earth. Dongfang Wenxian's body was still there, but her heart was no longer there. Her feelings had also left her body and were floating in mid-air, in this void. She and Jun Wuhui were in love, deeply attached to each other, husband and wife, indulging in each other's desires. Jun Moxie stayed quietly, feeling the undying love between his parents, and suddenly felt very lost. What should I do? What should I do? How should I choose? How can I choose? With the vast spiritual energy in the Hengjun Pagoda, Jun Moxie was 100% sure that he could wake up Dongfang Wenxin. But, so what if he woke up? What if he woke up? Jun Wuhui was already gone. How could Dongfang Wenxin live alone? Instead, in the dream, they could stay together until the end of time. Which plan was better for his mother? Before she fainted, her 3 sons were still alive, and when she woke up, she was told, that 2 of her 3 sons had died? Her husband died, and her sons lost. How could she bear it when she woke up? Wouldn't that be even worse than death? I, June Moxie, was an orphan in my previous life. Although my father died early in this life, I still have a mother to look forward to. Although my mother is in a deep sleep, she is not dead. June Moxie had always longed for it, and had always been very anxious. He had even imagined countless times in his heart, what would it feel like to really be in his mother's arms? Warm. Sweet. Safe. They all talk about a mother's embrace, and they all praise a mother's embrace, but now that I've really seen my mother, I'm in such a dilemma. Could it be that I, June Moxie, am destined to lack this in my life? In this life, I practice the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, and from then on, I will not fall into the cycle of reincarnation, beyond the 3 realms, and from then on, I will no longer have to worry about life and death. But, the kinship in the world. I am missing the love of a father and a mother. Could it be that I will never have this chance again? Mother. Mother's love. I've looked forward to it for 2 lifetimes, I've longed for it for 2 lifetimes, I've also fantasized about it for 2 lifetimes, I've experienced 2 lifetimes. Could it be that in the end, I still can't have it? June Moxie staggered to stand up, and slowly walked to the bed. Suddenly, he slowly knelt down, and gently placed his forehead on Dongfang Wenxin's right hand. Suddenly, his heart was filled with endless bitterness, so sore that he wanted to die. What should I do? What should I do? Who can tell me? June Moxie had never felt hesitation, powerlessness, and helplessness before. Feeling the gentle touch on his forehead, that was his mother's hand, June Moxie's body convulsed in pain. He was choking with sobs, and could no longer speak. It was as if his heart was being squeezed tightly, and his eyes were blurred with tears. He could only silently ask Dongfang Wenxin, who was in front of him, "Mother. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? What should I do? Mother." Calling out, "Mother," June Moxie felt as if his heart was about to explode. All his longing, hope, and dreams. At this moment, were they all going to turn into nothingness? I can't accept this. I can't accept this. I really can't accept this. June Moxie raised his head, and silently roared. Tears flowed down from the corners of his eyes, and into his mouth. That bitterness seemed to have spread all the way to his heart, and it would continue to be bitter forever. So bitter. So bitter. Chapter 602. What should I do? Seeing his sleeping mother's face full of happiness, contentment, and tranquility, June Moxie's heart is in a mess at this moment. I am evil. I never deny that I am evil. I am never a good person. I only do things for myself and never care about others. I only do things according to my own preferences, fearless and unscrupulous. But, the person in front of me is my mother. Could I really wake her up from her beautiful dream and bring her into a cruel and unacceptable reality just for the sake of my own longing, for my own happiness, for the moment of warmth and reunion between mother and son that I yearned for? If she really wakes up, she will have to face the cruel reality of losing 2 of her 3 sons. How can she bear it? How could she feel at ease when she saw that her maiden family had fallen into such a miserable state because of her? Also, his mother had suffered for 10 years because of him. Would she feel so guilty that she wanted to bury herself in a hole? How can my heart be revived when it's dead? How could he let a woman whose heart had died once again face the painful life of death? Can I be so selfish? Can I really? June Moxie silently asks himself. June Xia, who has always been decisive in killing, is really in a dilemma at this moment. If I don't save her when I can, how can I be a son? Where is my conscience? How can my conscience be at ease? It was unacceptable for a son to watch his mother fall into a deep sleep. He could have saved her, but he didn't. How heartless was that? What's wrong with you? Mei Xueyan is also choking with sobs because of everything in front of her, but with her unparalleled cultivation, she is keenly aware that something is wrong with Jun Moxie. Jun Mo Xia shook his head in agony. He stretched out his trembling hand and grabbed the small tree that was on the verge of withering on his mother's body. The moment he came into contact with it, he felt a jolt in his heart. The moment he came into contact with it, he could clearly feel that his skin had gained a lot of vitality. There was actually such a rare treasure in the world. With such a miraculous treasure, no wonder it could extend Dongfang Wen Xian's life for 10 years. Under Mei Xueyan's confused gaze, Jun Moxie closed his eyes and used all his strength to activate the power of wood in his body. At this moment, his mind was in unprecedented grief. He connected with the Hengjun Pagoda, and all the pure energy in his body was turned into the power of wood. 4. Mother. Perhaps you really don't want to wake up. Perhaps you'd rather continue your long-cherished wish of spending a lifetime together in a dream. But even if it's a dream, I still hope to be part of your dream. I want this dream of yours to be more comfortable. Power of wood. Ever since Jun Moxie obtained this new ability, he had been practicing it. He had never slacked off, but he had never used it. But what exactly was the power of wood? The power of wood represented the purest essence of plants in the world. As long as there is enough power of wood, any magical seed can sprout, branch, bloom, and bear fruit in an instant. As long as there is enough power of wood, a tree can wither and die in an instant, and a dying plant can be rejuvenated with a snap of a finger. Seize the fortune of heaven and earth, gather the essence of the sun and moon, and transform it into the spiritual chi of the 5 elements. Power of wood. Is it shocking? Is it revealing his strength? Is it revealing his trump card? Right now, Jun Moxie did not think about it at all. He was only wholeheartedly creating a comfortable environment for his mother. Mei Xueyan's puzzled gaze turned into astonishment, and then into horror. What kind of shocking change could cause such a calm person like her to be so shocked? Because everything in front of her eyes was too unbelievable. In Jun Moxie's hands, the magical little tree that was about to wither was rejuvenated at a speed visible to the naked eye. Divine light flowed, and the fluorescent light became denser and denser. The green that symbolized the plant's lifespan became more and more exuberant. The originally withered branches and leaves also slowly regained their lush color, and then transformed into a deep green, and then, green to the point where it was transparent. Even the whole room, because of the little tree's rejuvenation, became a delicate green, full of health and vitality. The miraculous changes didn't stop there. At the top of the small tree, a branch suddenly wriggled, and a small lump slowly bulged out. Then, it unfolded, and turned into a small piece of sparkling green leaf, and then another, and another one, and another one. Mei Xueyan only felt that her 2 legs had gone soft, and she had no strength to support herself. She could only slowly sit on the ground, her heart full of shock. She opened her mouth, but couldn't make a sound. This kind of magical power, even she had never heard of it. This was a miracle that surpassed the legends. Slowly, the little tree that originally only had 4 or 5 withered leaves, in this instant, had transformed a lot. Not only did the leaves regain their green color, but they also grew and grew. At this moment, there were as many as 14 or 15 leaves, and the little tree's height had also increased to the size of a human head, and the branches were at least 3 times thicker. If the original little tree's vitality could support Dongfang for 10 years, then the tree in front of him could at least support it for 100 years. Jun Moxie closed his eyes, but tears continued to flow from the corners of his eyes, and the spiritual power in his body continued to flow out unreservedly. There was a limit to a person's strength, and of course, it was the same for plants. Although the little tree was magical, there was a limit to how much the essence of heaven and earth could bear. Under Jun Moxie's endless supply of spiritual power, the little tree's vitality was finally full. If he continued, Jun Moxie did not dare to continue. What if it was too weak? He finally stopped, but his eyes were still closed, and his face was full of sincerity. He held his mother's delicate hand, and gently caressed it on his face. Feeling this gentle and delicate touch, tears dripped down, wetting his mother's palm. This is what I hope for. This is what I dream of. He did not hesitate, and once again activated the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, and slowly poured the purest spiritual power in his body into his mother's meridians, carefully combing through every single impurity in his mother's meridians. I'm sorry, although you are willing to sleep, and would rather follow father in the underworld, holding your hand, and growing old together, but, as your son, I cannot let you die like this. Even if you sleep and ignore me for the rest of your life, and don't say a word to me. I am still a child with a mother. In Dongfang Wenxin's heart, there was a huge cloud of haze. It was like a fog, so dense that it was almost tangible. Jun Moxie was very clear that as long as this cloud of haze was removed, Dongfang Wenxin would immediately wake up, but, before Jun Moxie could make up his mind, it was better to temporarily ignore it. If she really woke up, and if she immediately committed suicide, then everything would not be worth it. So, Jun Moxie could only adjust his mother's meridians, and everything else, to the best state. But he could not, and did not dare to, touch the heart meridian. After a long time, Jun Moxie opened his eyes, and looked in front of him in a daze. In that position, a portrait of his father, Jun Wuhui, was smiling at him, comforting him. Jun Moxie let out a long breath, and in a low voice, as if he was talking to himself, he said, "What should I do? Am I really making the right choice now? Shui Yan, I can save mother, and let her body recover to its best state, but, her heart, I can't do it. Shui Yan, tell me, what should I do? What should I do?" As he spoke, Jun Moxie's eyes were still staring at the empty space in front of him, looking at his father's warm gaze in the portrait, as if, asking this father in the ethereal world. Mei Shuiyan was startled, and didn't know how to answer. After a long time, she finally shook her head slowly, and said blankly, "I also don't know. To be honest, this is a dead knot that cannot be solved. From a woman's point of view. If you are in the portrait, and I am in the bed. I also don't want to wake up. I would rather sleep until the end of time. There is no other reason, no matter if it's a dream or an illusion, I will always have you by my side. Although the mortal world is real. I will not have you by my side." She smiled sadly and said, before when Xian's mother went into a deep sleep, she drew so many portraits of Wu Hui's father to accompany her. Obviously, she had already made all the preparations. She created a perfect world for her father. If we forcefully pull her out, it would be too cruel. So, she definitely has a sufficient reason to continue sleeping. That is what she wants. Maybe we really shouldn't disturb her. If mother can get what she wants and be happy, isn't that better than anything else? Jun Moxie sighed painfully and said, "I think so too, but since you have the ability to wake her up, I'm afraid it's not possible to keep her from waking up." Mei Shuiyan said heavily, "First of all, if mother just lies there, the two great families will be tormented. The Dongfang family has already sacrificed so much for Wen Xian's mother, and the old lady has been tortured day and night, living a life worse than death. There is also the revenge of Wu Hui's father, and the hatred of the Jun family, and the injustice of our son. And you. Can all these be abandoned? This is also a violation of the human relationship. If it's possible, let her wake up." All of a sudden, a muffled voice sounded outside the door. The two of them looked up in surprise, and saw the old lady of the Dongfang family standing at the door with tears all over her face. This poor mother still followed them in the end. The old lady's body was trembling, and she slammed her walking stick heavily on the floor. Bang! The old lady repeated, "Let her wake up." She said it very urgently, decisively, and unquestionably. Only then did she walk in. Her eyes were filled with tears, but they were also filled with great surprise. She looked at Jun Moxie and said word by word, "Moxie, since you have the ability to wake her up, then I'll give it to you." "Then, what are you still hesitating for? Let her wake up immediately. Immediately. Immediately." June Moxie said painfully, Grandma, I also want to. But. Grandma, Mother, what will happen after she wakes up? What should I do? How will she face it? Do I really have to let Mother face such a cruel reality? Chapter 603. What identity? June Moxie shook his head blankly. Could it be that his mother had another identity that he didn't know about? Since she came to this world, her first identity is that of a daughter, a mother's daughter. The old lady of Dongfang's white hair fluttered in the wind. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she looked at June Moxie without blinking. Secondly, she is the sister of my 3 brothers. Then, she is June Wu Hui's wife. Then, she is the daughter-in-law of the June family, and finally, she is your mother. First, she is a daughter, then a wife, and finally, a mother, or perhaps, a grandchild. Old Madame Dongfang raised her head towards the sky and sighed sadly. She's sleeping now, but it's only for the identity of being someone's wife. Then, isn't Mother's worry day and night, tossing and turning in bed, her heart aching? Isn't that her responsibility? I have had my mother since I was a child, lonely and destitute. Isn't it her responsibility? Since the heavy responsibility is on my shoulders, how can I continue to sleep? The old lady shouted at the last sentence. June Moxie and Mei Xuan's bodies shook, and they suddenly understood. Yes, June Moxie had been worried that his selfishness would hurt his mother, but he didn't think that not saving her would be even more selfish. So many relatives, so many true feelings, would all be hurt. She must wake up. Let her wake up. She must wake up. The old mistress said solemnly, back then, she should not have fallen into a deep slumber like a zombie. If she had really pulled out her sword and committed suicide, it would have been the end of all her troubles. She would not have been able to torment this old woman for so many years. We have never given up after tormenting the Dongfang family for so many years, hoping that she would wake up one day. We must wake her up. If she still wishes to seek death, then, this old woman would like to see how she would seek death under the service of her son and daughter-in-law, how she would face the heartache of her white-haired, elderly mother. I will wait and see, and I will not stop her. Even if the white-haired person has to send off the black-haired person, it's still better than tormenting him half-dead. When the old lady said this, 2 lines of tears uncontrollably flowed down along the wrinkles on her face. She choked and said, as a woman, I have also experienced the same thing. How can I not understand her pain? How can I not empathize with her? But, since it was her suffering, she had to bear it. He absolutely could not keep running away. If there is no joy and sorrow, how can one live a complete life? As the old lady said this, her whole body suddenly trembled. Although her words were ruthless, the strong expectation in her eyes and the great surprise of her daughter who she thought was going to wake up soon couldn't be concealed anymore. She slowly walked to the bed and gently touched her daughter's delicate face. Although her words were resolute, her movements were so gentle at this moment, as if she was afraid of waking up her daughter. Her expression and eyes were so gentle and loving. She gently moved a strand of her daughter's hair back, slowly bent down, and put her face on her daughter's face. She said softly, there is no pain that can't be endured. When Xin, I will be with you. No matter what, we will bear it together. You won't be lonely, that's good. Grandma, since you've decided to let Mother wake up, then you should prepare for what happens after she wakes up. June Mo Xia made a prompt decision. He was always like this. Once he made a decision, there would be no changing it, and he would press forward. Before, he hadn't made up his mind, so he had been hesitating. Now that he had made up his mind, he could only think about what to do next. After she wakes up. After she wakes up. The old lady looked at her daughter's face affectionately. Suddenly, she couldn't help but cover her face and burst into tears, my son. After she wakes up. What awaits you is still endless suffering, or even more painful. Your husband is gone. 2 of your 3 sons have left you. My daughter, my Wanexian. Little Wanexian. Your life. Why is it so hard? Every time I think of this, I feel so much pain, so much pain. Do you know? Every time I think of this, I wish you would never wake up. I have a way that might let Mother get well as soon as possible. Mei Shuiyan said carefully. What way? June Moxie and the old lady were overjoyed and asked at the same time. If, in order to save Mother, Mo Xia used up all his energy. Exhausted, seriously injured, and unconscious. What will happen to Mother? Mei Shuiyan said slowly. Seriously injured? Unconscious? The 2 of them were stunned, but they seemed to have grasped the key point and started to ponder. Suddenly, the old lady slapped her thigh and praised loudly, "Good idea." It was indeed a good plan. In this way, when Xian would naturally take care of her son wholeheartedly. Unknowingly, she would also put all the other important things aside. Only when her son got better would she have the mood to understand other things. As long as there was a buffer, all the things that were difficult to accept would also be diluted. This plan was based on human nature, it was really a good plan. Mo Xia, this daughter-in-law of yours is really not simple. As the saying goes, the older the ginger, the more spicier it is. The old lady, who had a clear view of the world, actually figured out the key point before June Moxie. June Moxie was very smart and immediately understood. He nodded and said, "It is indeed a good idea. Although it is a lie. But, it is still the best choice for now. Shui Yin. You are really my good wife. You can even think of such a good idea. Your husband will definitely reward you tonight." Mei Shuiyan's face turned red and she said angrily, "You. Speak properly. Don't be like that. Besides, I am not asking you to pretend to be injured. If you pretend to be injured and Mother finds out, the effect will be the opposite of what you want. It will only be effective if you are really injured." Really injured? This. The old lady was stunned and hesitated for a moment. If I am not really injured and only pretend to be injured. Moreover, I will have to disguise it for a long time. If I want to not be seen through by someone who takes care of me every day. It is really not easy. Although Mother is not a peak expert, she is still a Xian practitioner. Hiding it from her like this might not be possible. Mei Shuiyan smiled confidently and said, "However, with Mo Xia's vast divine power, it is still possible to cause a strange injury such as internal organs being shaken and power exhaustion. He just needs to control himself every day." The old lady did not understand what Mei Shuiyan said. Firstly, her cultivation was not high enough. Secondly, she did not understand June Dashao's methods. But how could June Moxie not understand? Injury? That was too easy. As long as his soul did not scatter on the spot, what kind of injury could resist the spiritual energy of heaven and earth? The control that Mei Shuiyan mentioned was to control the speed at which his injuries healed. That. Isn't it too risky? Internal organs shaken and power exhaustion. This. The old lady sucked in a breath of cold air. This is not a joke. If something really happens, wouldn't it be a waste of my efforts? My daughter is gone, and my nephew is gone. No. It is too risky. Let's change the method. Don't worry, Grandma. Mo Xia will be fine. His methods are very powerful. Mei Shuiyan smiled sweetly. Seeing that Mei Shuiyan was so confident, the old lady could not help but look at June Moxie doubtfully. Her expression gradually became serious. Because she had used all her power to look at him, but she could not see the level of her good grandson. Mo Xia, tell me honestly. What is the level of your Xian Qi cultivation? If you really reached the peak of Tian Xian, it might be possible. But with your age, it doesn't seem possible, right? Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyan looked at each other and smiled. He said, Grandma, right now, you are probably at the supreme level, right? Shen Xian level 7. Third order venerable. Although Jun Mo Xia used the word question, his tone was certain. You can see through my cultivation. The old lady was shocked. She could not see through him, but he could see through her. Didn't this mean that Jun Moxie's cultivation was higher than hers? Yes. My current cultivation. In terms of Xian Qi, it should be Shen Xian level 8, fourth order supreme. Jun Moxie thought for a while and finally told the truth. He said, if I can go one step further, I should be superior supreme, hiss. The old lady gasped. Her eyes were wide open as she looked at her good grandson, Jun Moxie. Her body swayed, and suddenly, she was about to sit on the ground. Mei Shuiyan reacted quickly and held her. Shen Xian level 8. Fourth order supreme. The old lady felt that she was dreaming, or this kid was lying through his teeth. She shook her head hard and said in disbelief, How? How is this possible? Nothing is impossible, Grandma. Don't worry. Mo Xia indeed has this kind of strength. If they really fight, I believe that ordinary superior supreme experts may not be his match. Mei Shuiyan said confidently. Mei Shuiyan's words were quite exaggerated. With Jun Moxie's current skills, he may not be his match. It was a direct instant kill. Previously, he killed 15 experts from the Supreme Golden City silently in the snow. Among them, there were 5 real superior supreme experts. Even the supreme assassin Chu Chi-hun would not be able to achieve such a feat, although the outside world thought he could do it now. At the end of the day, the title of the world's #1 killer, the king of killers, and the supreme killer belonged to Jun Moxie. Only Jun Dashao could be considered to be the real title. Oh. The old lady trembled as she supported herself on the bed and stood up. She looked at Mei Shuiyan and said, Miss, I am confident that my eyes are not blurry. But I still can't see the real strength of you and Mo Xia. If Mo Xia is already a supreme master, then what about you? The old lady was not a simple person. She had already noticed that this niece-in-law in front of her was not an ordinary person. Now that she had made it clear, she might as well get to the bottom of it. I'm just a little taller than him. Mei Shuiyan tried to think of an excuse, but she still managed to be modest. Chapter 604. This is a dream. This is a dream. I must be dreaming. I have been dreaming ever since I said when Xian could be saved. Otherwise, how could such an unbelievable thing happen? A zombie who had been sleeping for 10 years could wake up. 2 people who were not even 20 years old, one was a 4th order supreme martial artist and the other was a superior supreme martial artist. Shen Xian was a 9th order martial artist. Wouldn't he be a superior supreme martial artist? Even if it was a legend, there was no such person. The old lady was so happy that she was about to collapse in happiness. So what if she collapsed from such a beautiful dream? The secluded courtyard fell into an unprecedented silence. The people of the Dongfang family stood outside the courtyard, closely monitoring any movement. Dongfang Wenqing and his 2 brothers patrolled back and forth with their hands on the hilts of their swords, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. The old madam sat in the bedroom, and didn't even blink her eyes. Mei Shuiyan was standing on the roof of the small building, looking around with her sword in her hand. This kind of precaution was already foolproof. Even if the 3 holy lands came out at the same time, Mei Shuiyan alone would be able to hold them off for a while. Moreover, it was in such a remote place. In the bedroom, Jun Moxie closed his eyes slightly and held his mother's hand. A huge amount of extremely pure heaven and earth spiritual energy was continuously channeled into his mother's heart, driving away the haze in her heart. Jun Mo Xia did not dare to be too hasty, and did not dare to be careless at all. Bit by bit, he resolved the problem. After all, his mother had not moved for 10 years. Even though her body had been nursed by him, it was still weak to a certain extent. If he used too much force, it might cause unimaginable damage. It was better to be safe than sorry. Jun Moxie used all his caution. There must be no mistakes. The haze in Dongfang Wen Xian's heart slowly disappeared under the pressure of Jun Moxie's powerful heaven-earth spiritual qi, disappearing without a trace. Slowly, there was only a small ball left, a small ball. If it was originally the size of an apple, now it was only the size of a strawberry seed. On the bed, Dongfang Wenxin's tranquil expression disappeared and was replaced by a deep frown. She seemed to feel that she was about to be dragged out of her sweet dream, so she was very unwilling. She still wanted to stay here, but the pulling force was so strong that she couldn't resist. She struggled with all her strength. The expression on her face became more and more painful. Her head shook violently. The old lady of Dongfang gently held her daughter's hand. Her expression was full of pity, surprise, and worry. At this moment, the old lady suddenly became afraid and regretful. If when Xian woke up, her husband was already dead, and she knew the death of her 2 sons, what would her reaction be? What is the most important thing in a woman's life? The most important thing was his family. Husband. Children. One dream for 10 years. The happiness in the dream disappeared instantly. When she woke up, she not only had to face the tragedy of her husband leaving her forever, but also the fact that 2 of her 3 sons had died. How cruel it was. Painful. The old lady almost didn't dare to imagine what her daughter would be like when she woke up. She just held her daughter's hand tightly and watched her daughter struggle in pain. She seemed to want to pass all her strength to her daughter to help her resist the endless pain. It was almost done. Even Mei Xuan, who was on the roof, could clearly feel the pain and joy in Jun Moxie's heart. This was the crucial moment. Finally, Dongfang Wen Xian furrowed her brows tightly and shook her head in pain. Her face was filled with the pain of parting with death, and beads of sweat the size of soybeans rolled down her forehead. Suddenly, her eyelids fluttered, and she let out a heart-wrenching scream. Wu Hui. Then she sat up abruptly. At the same time, the huge spiritual power in Jun Moxie's meridians flowed backward and exploded in his dantian. He spat out a mouthful of scarlet blood, and then continued to spit out blood. However, his hands continued to transfer spiritual power. The injury this time was not a fake injury as previously planned, but a real injury. It was a very serious injury. In order to make it look real, Jun Moxie decided to make it real. After such an explosion, all his internal organs were severely injured, and he was almost at death's door. In the eyes of the common people, Dongfang Wenxin had woken up, but Jun Moxie was also finished. He would probably be sick and bedridden for the rest of his life. This was not an exaggeration at all. He had to fight like this, because he cared too much about his mother, and he couldn't afford to lose her. For mother, he had to fight. For mother, this injury was worth it. No matter how heavy it was worth it. Dongfang Wen Xian felt as if she had woken up from a distant dream. She opened her eyes blankly, and her face was still filled with pain. She could only feel a warm current flowing from her hands. She opened her eyes and saw an old face full of wrinkles looking at her with tears in his eyes. A familiar voice called out in a trembling voice, "Wen Xian, my daughter, my good daughter, you've finally woken up." Dongfang Wenxin opened her eyes wide and looked at the face in front of her in disbelief. But under the effect of mother-daughter instinct, she still recognized that the old woman in front of her was her beautiful mother. She suddenly panicked and cried out involuntarily, "Mother? How did you become like this?" "I'm fine. Don't worry about me, take a look at your son first." "Ah, poor child." The old lady cried out, and her tears kept falling. "Son." Dongfang Wenxin looked over and saw a young, handsome, and familiar face in front of her. He was lying on the quilt on top of her. His eyes were closed, and his face was pale like a dead person. Blood was still flowing out of his mouth, and he was unconscious. However, there was a hint of joy at the corner of his mouth. That was his face, and the person in front of her must be her son. One of his hands was still holding her hand. That warm current was coming from that hand. Was it my son who woke me up? But, what happened to him? Why did he become like this? Dongfang Wenxin suddenly felt sour and bitter in her heart. Looking at her son's pale face and the blood at the corner of his mouth, she suddenly felt a heart-wrenching pain in her heart. Is this Mou? She looked at the son in front of her in surprise. Before she fainted, her eldest son, Mou, was already this big, but he seemed to be older than the person in front of her. Is this Mo Cho? Her trembling hands lifted up Jun Moxie's right sleeve, and looked at it. She shook her head and said, "It's not Mo Cho, nor is it Mou." Suddenly, she cried out in pain, "Is it Mo Xie?" She hurriedly reached out her hand and brushed aside her son's hair. Above his ear, there were 3 red moles. Even Jun Moxie himself didn't know that there were red moles at this position. They were very small, like sesame seeds, and they were placed side by side. This was also a sign that only a mother could find and remember. "It's Mo Xie. My son, Mo Xie." Dongfang Wenxin panicked, and suddenly felt a pain in her heart. "Mother. What happened to Mo Xie? Why did he vomit so much blood? You are so powerful, please save him. Save him. What's wrong? Isn't it all your fault?" The old lady wiped her tears. "You have been asleep for 10 years, and both the Dongfang and Jun family have exhausted a lot of effort and manpower. In order to wake you up, Mo Xie has practiced a magical mental cultivation method since he was young. Now, he finally succeeded in it, and couldn't wait to save you. But in order to save you, this silly boy used up all his energy, and caused the backlash of his power. He vomited blood and was injured. His life is in danger. You, Wenxin, look at your son. How could you? You. Sigh." The old lady let out a long sigh, and helped Jun Moxie to sit in her arms. She used a soft silk handkerchief to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. But this also allowed this exhausted and pale face to appear completely in front of Dongfang Wenxin. "I've been asleep for 10 years? Dongfang Wenxin murmured to herself blankly, but immediately put this matter behind her. She was anxious again, and her heart was tightly clenched. She actually forgot about her own pain, and hurriedly urged, "Mother. Will Mo Xie be alright? Quickly think of a way. This silly boy, why does he work so hard? Why does he work so hard? How dare you say that? Didn't Mo Xie work so hard for you, his mother? Wasn't it for him to have a mother to love him? Poor child, he has nothing left except for you, his mother, but his mother is still lying on the bed, ignoring him. How painful is his heart? How anxious is he? Have you ever thought about it?" The old lady complained, "You only know that you are sad, and only know that you are sad. You sleep in a dream, and don't want to wake up. But what about this child? Mo Xie can be considered lucky. He managed to grow up without any illness or disaster. But he's always been looking forward to you." Dongfang Wenxin's heart ached. She lifted the quilt and was about to get off the bed. "Let me see Mo Xie, poor child." She got off the bed and hugged Jun Moxie tightly in her arms. Her tears suddenly gushed out. "It turns out that I've been asleep for 10 years. It turns out that Wu Hui. He's been gone for 10 years, 10 years. What a long time. I don't know how the 3 children grew up without their mother's care. How are they?" The heart of a loving mother instantly filled her heart, and even the image of her husband that she couldn't bear to part with was temporarily thrown aside. She didn't feel anything, but the old lady opened her eyes wide. He could actually walk immediately. Just like a normal person. June Moxie's methods were miraculous to what extent? How much would June Moxie's exhaustion be? At this time, the old lady was really worried. She thought that he was just a little injured, but now it seemed that the injury was not light. Dongfang Wenqing quietly walked in and heaved a deep sigh. All these years, little sister, you. He wanted to say a few words to her, but he choked on his words halfway. You only know how to love your son. But do you know? Your own mother, because of you, turned white overnight. The old lady sighed sadly. Mother. I'm not filial, I'm sorry. Moxie, my Moxie. I'm even more sorry. Dongfang Wenqing hugged June Moxie tightly and burst into tears. Chapter 605. A white shadow flashed, and Mei Shuiyan quietly appeared in the room. Seeing that Dongfang Wenqing had woken up, she couldn't help but feel happy. But when she saw that June Moxie had fainted with blood all over his mouth, she couldn't help but feel sad. With her cultivation, she could clearly see the severity of his injuries. She couldn't help but complain in her heart, I only asked you to put on a show. I said I wanted you to get seriously injured, but I didn't ask you to risk your life to get seriously injured. He looked like he was on the verge of death, but Mei Shuiyan also knew how important Dongfang Wenqing was to June Moxie. Perhaps, at this moment, June Moxie's desire for motherly love had reached a height that even Mei Shuiyan couldn't understand. Mother. This was such a sacred name. In June Moxie's heart, it was the biggest demon that had haunted him for 2 lifetimes. Mother, in my previous life, why did she abandon me? Why? Don't you know how much I desire it? Even if you beat me and scold me. I'm also a person with a mother, and I'm not an orphan. In my previous life, I dominated my entire life. No one in the world didn't fear me. In the mortal world, I became an immortal legend. But, who knew the pain in my heart? Because until I died, I didn't know what my surname should be. I was like an extra person in this world. Although I was brilliant and glorious, but I didn't have a root after all. I longed for my mother, longed for motherly love. Who could understand to what extent my longing had reached? When I dreamt in the middle of the night, when the autumn wind was blowing, when I couldn't sleep, when thousands of families were reunited with lights during the spring festival, what about me? I only walked alone on the road. I didn't want to be arrogant, I didn't want to be cold-blooded, I wanted to cry in my mother's arms when I felt wronged, I wanted my mother to take care of me when I was weak, not because of the so-called care, but because of the motherly love. In this life, my mother was still here, but she was thousands of miles away, sleeping like a living dead. When I thought of myself as June Moxie, my mother was questioning me, but I'm your son. I dreamed of motherly love. June Moxie was unconscious. The moment Dongfang Wenqing woke up, he finally fainted with a peace of mind. He blissfully fainted. Dongfang Wenqing couldn't help but ask, this lady is? Suddenly seeing a fairy-like beauty dressed in white appear in front of her, and her eyes were filled with heartache and concern as she looked at the son in her arms. What young lady? This is not your daughter-in-law. Moxie's wife. The old lady rebuked, Wenqing, you're already a mother-in-law. Maybe you'll have grandchildren soon, daughter-in-law. Moxie's wife. Dongfang was startled. He looked at Mei Shuiyan from head to toe and finally smiled with satisfaction. He asked warmly, Miss, what is your name? Mei Shuiyan's face instantly turned as red as a plum blossom. She said in a low voice, my surname is Mei Shuiyan. You're Moxie's wife. Why don't you call her mother? Dongfang Wenqing looked at Mei Shuiyan with a smile. The more she looked, the more satisfied she was. My son has good taste. This daughter-in-law is prettier than me when I was young, mother. Mei Shuiyan clenched her teeth. She was a little embarrassed, but more than that, she was shy and happy. She called her mother in a low voice. Good daughter-in-law. You're so pretty. Mo Xia has been naughty since he was young. Shui Yan, you have to bear with him. Dongfang Wenxin smiled comfortably. She hugged Jun Moxie tighter and said with tears in her eyes, yes. I'm already a mother-in-law. I'm going to have grandchildren soon. If Wu Hui knew about this, he would be so happy. I should have told him about this earlier, the old lady sighed sadly, I'm going to have grandchildren soon. Dongfang Wenxin suddenly frowned. Then, she smiled, Mo Xia is the youngest. Has he already found a wife? Then. Mo Yu and Mo Cho must have gotten married long ago. Or, they already have a lot of children. Sigh. I'm really not a good mother. Where are the two of them? Why didn't they come? Why are you in such a hurry? The old madam forced a laugh. This is the Dongfang family. Mo Xia has already gone through a lot of trouble to come here. It's not like you don't know how remote this place is, oh. Dongfang Wenxin slowly sat down. Although she still vaguely felt that something was wrong, she was relieved. She smiled and said, I forgot. This place is 17,000 miles away from the capital city of Tianxiang, right? It's really too far. That year, I had to travel thousands of miles before I saw anyone. At that time, the first person I saw was Wu Hui. He was with a few people. He was carrying one of his brothers to look for a doctor. That soldier was bitten by a snake. Fortunately, he met me that day. Otherwise, it would have been really troublesome. Dongfang Wenxin said faintly, later, I found out that it was one of his guards. It was very hot at that time. The soldier had to travel such a long distance. His feet were so smelly. But, in order to prolong his brother's life, Wu Hui sucked the poison from his body every few hours. That was how he finally saw me. Otherwise, that soldier would have died from the poison. I was very touched at that time. A general who could treat an ordinary soldier like that. It's really admirable. Dongfang Wenxin's eyes were filled with sadness, but the corners of her mouth were inexplicably gentle. It was as if she had returned to that period of time. Although Dongfang Wenxin had been in a coma for a whole 10 years, her thoughts had also stopped at 10 years ago. She didn't know that in these 10 years, the house was still the same, but the people were different. For her, her heart was full of pain and memories. And, it was so vivid, the old lady let out a long sigh. She opened her mouth, but really didn't know how to comfort her. She stood up and said angrily, take care of your son first. Your son almost lost his life because of you. Let's wait for Mo Xia to recover first. Dongfang Wenxin was shocked. She looked at her son in her arms lovingly. That familiar face that made her intoxicated, only much younger. She gently lowered her head, put her face on Jun Moxie's face, and said softly, my good son. He is also Wu Hui's flesh and blood, must make Mo Xia get better. San heir. My san heir. Mother's san heir, the old lady sighed in her heart and gave them a look. Although Dongfang Wenxin and the others were reluctant to leave, they also left. The old lady was the last to stand up and said, when Mo Xia recovers, Dongfang Wenxin. Just wait and beg for forgiveness from me. You are such an unfilial daughter, so many years, you, sigh. Finally, she let out a long sigh, stood up and left. There were only 3 people left in the room, Dongfang Wenxin, Mei Shuyan, and Jun Moxie, who had fallen into a coma, must have been suffering a tremendous amount of pain. However, his face was full of happiness and joy as he nestled in his mother's arms. For the next few days, Jun Moxie felt like he was living in heaven. Dongfang Wenxin almost didn't care about her clothes at all. Even when she slept, she set up a small bed beside her son. Every time he ate, she would personally feed him. At first, Jun Moxie was a little uncomfortable, but later, under Dongfang Wenxin's gentle insistence, he was defeated after resisting for a while. Slowly, he actually enjoyed it, snuggling in his mother's arms, enjoying his mother's deep care, smelling his mother's sweet smell, and feeling the happiness of a mother and son's hearts connected. For the first time in his two lives, Jun Moxie felt, what was happiness? What was dependence? It was so good to have a mother. Warmth, comfort, joy, as if all the adjectives to describe happiness in the world were not enough to describe the satisfaction he felt at this moment. I am Jun Moxie. I am Jun Moxie. I am the evil monarch. I finally have a mother. I am also a person who has a mother's love. Jun Moxie's heart was inexplicably excited. Over the past few days, he had been talking to his mother every day, telling her everything that had happened over the past few years, how mischievous he had been, how hedonistic he had been, how he had made people angry, as if there was nothing that could not be said. Then, his mother would happily point her finger at his forehead and gently reprimand him. Then, he would listen to his mother talk about how mischievous he was when he was a child, how he started to make trouble in his mother's womb, how he met his father, how they got to know each other, how they fell in love, how they accompanied each other, and how they stayed together. Every time it was like this, Jun Moxie would listen quietly, and Mei Shuiyan would also sit at the side and listen with a smile. But the strange thing was that Dongfang Wenxin never talked about sad things, and only talked about happy things. Even the two brothers, Jun Moyo and Jun Macho, were rarely mentioned. Since the first time she mentioned it in front of Jun Moxie, but Jun Moxie cleverly changed the topic, Dongfang Wenxin was stunned for a while, and didn't mention it again, although her face was still shrouded by a faint sadness, and her eyes were still filled with deep pain. But in front of Jun Moxie, she never showed it. She only took care of her son carefully, every moment, every minute, every inch of her son's food and drink, and even a strand of his hair, she took care of it to the extreme. It was as if she couldn't wait to pour the 10 years of maternal love into her son in one day, pour all her heart and soul into the son in front of her. Jun Moxie even had a feeling, how good would it be if it could go on like this forever? This kind of feeling was really too nostalgic. In these days, the Dongfang family came to visit every day, but every time they came, they left in a hurry. Even the old lady was no exception. Because they were all afraid to see Dongfang Wenxin's eyes. Sometimes, her eyes were filled with pain and questions, and facing these questions, even the old lady couldn't bear to tell her the truth. She could only come in a hurry and leave in a hurry every time. Every time, Dongfang Wenxin was left standing by the door thoughtfully, and the anxiety and the feeling of inauspiciousness in her eyes were also getting stronger and stronger, and more worried. Jun Moxie also keenly sensed the heavy pressure in Dongfang Wenxin's heart, and the deep sorrow. Although she never revealed it, never said it, and always tried to hide it, but Jun Moxie could feel it. Jun Moxie finally decided to get to the bottom of it. Instead of keeping it in their hearts with tacit understanding, it was better to get to the bottom of it. Grief only needed to be vented with a good cry, and it would be much better. Seeing his mother so depressed every day, Jun Moxie couldn't bear it. Of course, the biggest thing that gave Jun Moxie the courage to do so was a certain moment when Dongfang Wenxin wasn't around, and Mei Shuiyan said unintentionally, "I really can't bear to see my mother in such pain. If the dead could be resurrected, how good it would be." Chapter 606. After hearing Mei Shuiyan's words, Jun Moxie had a flash of inspiration and decided on one thing, a lie. Yes, a lie. After telling his mother the truth, he would make up a white lie. He would say that he had received the teachings of an immortal, but his current cultivation was not strong enough to change his fate and bring the dead back to life. However, in the future, he would be able to bring his father back to life. Let the old lady carry on with this beautiful hope and live on with a strong will. Even though this was a huge lie, it was still much better than having her heart turn into ashes right now. Even though it was a lie, how much love did it take to deceive her like this? Even though it was a lie, it was the sincerity of a son towards his mother. As long as there was hope, the future would not be dark anymore. As for the future, let's talk about it in the future. Let's take one step at a time. If he let her go on like this, she would probably repeat the same mistake sooner or later. Who knows what will happen in the future? The door opened, and Dongfang Wen Xian walked in lightly with a bowl of bird's nest soup in her hands. The moment she entered, she saw Jun Mo Xia half lying on the pillow in a daze. She couldn't help but reprimand him. "Child, your injuries haven't healed yet, why are you moving around? Lie down quickly, why are you so lost in thought?" Jun Moxie smiled, but this time, he didn't listen to her. He looked into Dongfang Wenxin's eyes seriously and said seriously, "Mother, I have something to say, can you believe me? It might be a bit ridiculous, but I hope you can believe me." "I believe you. I believe everything my son says. No matter how ridiculous it is, I will believe it." Dongfang Wenxin smiled and scooped up a spoonful of bird's nest soup. She blew on it and tasted the temperature. Then, she brought it to her son's mouth and coaxed, "Good boy. Open your mouth quickly. The more you eat, the faster you will recover. It's not hot at all." "Ah," Jun Moxie smiled bitterly. It seemed like his mother was taking care of him like a 3-year-old child. However, this kind of feeling, apart from the awkwardness, was also very intoxicating. "Really intoxicating, Mother, let me show you something first. Watch carefully." Jun Moxie drank a spoonful of porridge and said excitedly. As he spoke, he stretched out his right hand. There was a rose seed in his palm. "Isn't this just a flower seed? What's there to look at? Is it some kind of rare seed?" Dongfang Wen Xian smiled lightly, but there was still an unconcealable depression in her eyes. "Is it just an ordinary flower seed? However, you'd better watch carefully." Jun Moxie smiled mysteriously as he quickly circulated the power of wood in his body. What happened next shocked Dongfang Wen Xian so much that she opened her mouth wide and almost dropped the delicate bowl in her hand. The dark brown seed in Jun Moxie's palm suddenly turned green. Then, a thin bud slowly swayed out. It grew rapidly, sprouted, and grew taller. Slowly, it grew into a flower tree that was 3 feet tall, and the trunk was as thick as an index finger. The surprise didn't end, and the change didn't stop either. On the branch of the rose, a small pink bud slowly bulged, grew slowly, and opened slowly. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, 9 fragrant roses appeared in Jun Moxie's hand out of nowhere. The whole room was instantly filled with the fragrance of roses. This. What's going on? Is this a magic trick? Dongfang Wen Xian was tongue-tied. She looked at the rose tree in her son's hand, and was so shocked that she couldn't speak. Magic tricks use props, but these are real flowers. "Mother, can you smell these flowers and see if they smell good?" Jun Moxie squinted his eyes proudly, like a child who had gotten a good toy and couldn't wait to show it off in front of his mother. This is all real? How is this possible?" Dongfang Wen Xian was so shocked that she couldn't help but touch the rose with her hand. She lowered her head and sniffed it. She could clearly smell that the fragrance of the flower was real. She unconsciously exerted a little force on her hand, and couldn't help but let out a soft cry of, "Ah." Her hand was pricked by the thorns of the rose, and a drop of bright red blood seeped out. So, this wasn't a dream. It really wasn't a dream. Such a miracle was actually real. Such a miracle actually happened right in front of her eyes. "Mother, this is not a magic trick or a trick. This is the real magic of the gods. When I saved my mother previously, I was able to revive that withered little tree, and it was also because of this divine ability." Jun Moxie looked at Dongfang Wen Xian seriously. "The effect of this magic is not limited to this. My current cultivation is still low, and I don't have any more powerful magic. If I can cultivate it to a certain level, I can move mountains and fill seas, chase after the stars and the moon. I can also make 1,000 miles of forest wither overnight, or turn a 10,000 miles of wasteland into a sea of forest in an instant. Of course, I can also make a person with a terminal illness recover instantly, and even make an ordinary low-level Xian Qi practitioner transform into a supreme master in an instant. He looked at Dongfang Wen Xian fixedly, and said word by word, if I really cultivate it to the extreme, it's normal for a person on the brink of death to grow flesh and bones. If I can really communicate with the world and the netherworld, I can even make the dead come back to life. Dongfang Wen Xian felt dizzy. Her body swayed, and the delicate porcelain bowl in her hand finally fell to the ground with a pa sound. The sound was so clear that it seemed to resonate in her heart. Then, Dongfang Wen Xian's body swayed, and she softly fell down. Mei Shuiyan, who was beside her, quickly caught her and held her in her arms. In just a moment, Dongfang Wen Xian slowly woke up. As soon as she woke up, she couldn't wait to reach out her hands and touch the flower tree in front of her obsessively. Although she was constantly pierced, she didn't seem to feel it at all. There was only an intoxicated look on her face, and her tears flowed down continuously. It was as if what she was touching was not a flower, but a dream. An earth-shattering dream that was within reach. With Dongfang Wen Xian's intelligence, how could she not understand the meaning of Jun Moxi's words? She didn't want to believe it, but this obvious miracle appeared in front of her eyes. In such an instant, an ordinary seed could germinate and bloom. With such a miraculous scene happening in front of her, what else couldn't she do? Her son had just said that his cultivation level was still low, and his cultivation level was still low, so this was the best he could do. But if he could achieve such a miracle with such a low cultivation level, what would happen if he really reached an extremely high level? At this moment, the room suddenly shone with a green light. The strange little tree that was originally placed on Dongfang Wen Xian's chest had been placed on a piece of warm jade ever since Dongfang Wen Xian woke up. At this moment, it felt the majestic power of wood released from Jun Moxi, and suddenly flew over. It slowly flew to the front of Jun Moxi, and started to circle around his body. It seemed to be a little anxious. Jun Moxi's heart stirred. He stretched out his hand, and let it fall on his palm. Then, the Hung Jun pagoda suddenly opened in his mind. And, that small tree disappeared from his palm with a whooshing sound. Dongfang Wen Xian was shocked again. She was no stranger to this little tree. Although this little tree was found by the old lady after she fell asleep to help her extend her life, it had been almost 10 years. Even though it was a beautiful dream that she didn't want to wake up from, this little tree still played a part in it. It was because of this magical little tree that she, a living dead person, had survived for 10 years. This magical little tree that had almost exhausted its vitality was revived because of her son, and now it seemed to have flown into her son's body spontaneously. This son of hers was really too mysterious, or anything could happen to him. Jun Moxi could clearly feel that after the little tree entered the Hung Jun pagoda, it seemed to be pulled by something and flew straight to the first level. There, the 2 soul-replenishing jades that Jun Moxi had obtained from the Shao family were originally sitting there peacefully. Suddenly, with a clear buzzing sound, they separated. The little tree flew slowly to the center of the 2 soul-replenishing jades and landed slowly. The 2 soul-replenishing jades closed with a snap, sandwiching the roots of the little tree in the middle. The 3 seemed to have merged into one in an instant, becoming inseparable. From the roots of the little tree, a few roots extended out and wrapped around the 2 soul-replenishing jades. This change was completely out of Jun Moxi's expectations. He tried again and again, but he couldn't move it out. This little tree ran in on its own and actually settled down inside. It couldn't be chased out anymore. This was the first time Jun Moxi had encountered such a thing. He couldn't help but laugh bitterly. What should he do? This was something that his grandmother's family had spent almost all of their fortune to get. How could he just take it away without knowing what was going on? At this time, Dongfang Wen Xian had already regained her senses, but her expression was still rather agitated. Her delicate body was trembling, and her eyes were shining with tears. She looked at her son without blinking and asked in a trembling voice, "Mo Xie. Son, what did you say? What do you want to say?" The intelligent Dongfang Wen Xian had already understood her son's intentions, but she still wanted to get a definite answer from her son's mouth. "I said, in time, I might be able to bring father back to life." Jun Moxie looked at her fixedly and said word by word, "But, this needs time. It might take a lot of time." He paused, and his face twisted a little. He took a deep breath and threw out the main show, even my two brothers, can be brought back to life." Dongfang Wen Xian's body shook violently again. She murmured, "They can also be brought back to life, they can also be brought back to life." Suddenly, tears gushed out of her eyes and she said weakly, "So, my premonition was right. Not only Wu Hui, but also Mo Cho. My children. What happened to them? What happened to them?" Suddenly, she felt a pain in her heart. She covered her face with her hands. What happened in these years? What on earth happened? Why even? Mother. You don't have to be so sad. Jun Moxie said resolutely, "I just said. I can do it, I can definitely do it. I can bring them back to life." You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.